Mom calls me selfish over a phone gift incident from my teenage years. Am I the asshole or is she? Original post, 28F, was visiting my mom this weekend and I turned a video on while we crafted Smosh's new Reddit video. One of the first videos they cover is on the story of a mother losing her daughter's Louis Vuitton bag. We listened to it and I said it sounded similar to the phone incident when I was younger. My mom got really defensive, said that I was selfish as a teenager and I'm acting selfish now. We argued for a bit and she said, I wonder what Reddit would think of our story. So I decided to find out. For my 15th birthday, my grandpa sent me a new smartphone in the mail. I was incredibly excited about it and my mom was really upset. She said that it was inappropriate for me to have a more upgraded phone than she did. He sent me the newer version of the phone she had, and that there was no way she was going to let me have the phone. So, instead of transferring my SIM card to my new phone, she went and transferred hers to the new phone and mine to her phone. Her argument was that I still had a newer phone than my previous one, so I should be grateful. But given the new smartphone had been a gift, I was really upset and called my grandpa, her dad, to complain. He then called her and chewed her out for it, which made her yell at me for involving him. She said again there was no reason for me to have such an upgraded phone when I only used it to talk to my friends and she used her phone for work. Our argument went on for over a week before I just dropped it, but I was bitter for a long time. She continued to bring up how unbelievably selfish I had acted and that she was disappointed to have raised such a selfish daughter. Every once in a while, especially at family gatherings, this story will be brought up by someone and the argument starts all over. My brother, 17 at the time, and my dad stayed neutral on it, and my grandpa was pissed but lived in another country and couldn't do much but call my mom like he did. That's the story. My mom called me selfish again when I brought it up and said that my continued bitterness towards this event just goes to show how ungrateful and entitled that I am. No matter how many times I tell her that what she did was pretty messed up. So who is the AH? Edit. The intention was always to show the verdict of this post to my mom, since it was her idea to see what Reddit would think. I texted her and asked her if there was anything she'd like to add before I forwarded the post to her and just got this back. As I have said, it was not appropriate for a girl of your age to have a more capable smartphone if you weren't going to use it for anything other than texting your friends. Your grandpa did not ask me before sending the phone to you. I told you that you could not have the phone and you continued to ask for it, so I gave you my old one as a compromise, which was a newer and nicer phone than the one you had, and you still continued to ask for the newer one even after I said no. I maintain that your behavior was that of a selfish teenager, and I think any moms on Reddit will agree with me. Hopefully your post puts an end to this argument. I will add that she said this weekend, this was before Instagram. What would you have used the phone for? The new phone in question was a Samsung Galaxy 2. My mom had the Samsung Galaxy 1 and I had a Nokia slider phone before my grandpa sent me the new one. Edit 2. I am going to take screenshots of this post and send them to my mom after work. We'll try to update when I can. I don't expect she'll be happy, but I agree with her that hopefully we can stop bringing this up. AITA has no consensus bot. OOP was voted NTA relevant comments. Commenter 1, your mom told you to take this to Reddit. She needs to browse more. People here generally don't like bullies. OOP, she likes it when I put on the Reddit videos when we hang out, but has otherwise never explored Reddit. But even in that video, the Smosh people absolutely called that mother the AH and my mom was like, well, our thing is completely different. Commenter 2. So gift stealing mother thinks you are selfish. Okay, did she do this with other gifts? Like take money from a gift for you? Ooh, OP. This is the only time in my life she has ever done something this extreme, which is why I think it gets brought up to this day, because it was such a wild situation for us and sticks out. OOP on getting the phone at the time. OOP, valid concern, but the phone was genuinely a complete surprise from my grandpa. I had not asked for a new phone from my parents or my grandparents. Commenter 3, you are NTA, but your mom certainly is. It takes a hell of a lot of nerve to steal your child's gift because you want it and then claim that the child is selfish. Your mother's take is strictly self-serving, so she doesn't have to admit that she's wrong for stealing from her own child. Update. Posting an update here instead of AITA so I can just add screenshots. It is unfortunately not much of an update. I sent my mom about a dozen screenshots from the, then, 100 or so comments on the post right when I got off work. She didn't acknowledge or respond to them for a while. Kept trying to talk about other things and I had to keep pressing her to read the comments. I did most of the heavy lifting. She kept trying to change the subject and I had to keep redirecting. I tried to call her a few times after she said she read the comments and she would not answer, even though I think talking over text made this infinitely more frustrating. I don't feel like we came to any conclusion other than to never bring it up again. The final screenshot is from my brother, Jay. Thanks to everyone for giving me better language to talk about this situation and sharing similar experiences. I think it is just something my family has never been able to get over, as stupid as it is. My grandpa passed away 3 years ago, so unfortunately we cannot get his opinion. Transcripts of the text messages between OOP and her mom. Mom, yes, I read the comments you sent me, Mom. Obviously it isn't great to see random Reddit people talking about me on the internet. OP, I know, OOP, like I'm not even upset about the actual phone anymore. I feel like you keep mentioning the phone specifically. It's now more that after all these years you won't acknowledge even a little that what you did was hurtful to me as a teenager, and that people like Jay keep bringing it up because it was hurtful. I'm really sick of being called selfish for years because of this one thing, and you keep bringing it up seemingly just to tell people you think I'm selfish. Sorry to say, but I think most of the family agree with the Reddit comments. Mom, yes, okay. I do understand it's not about the phone, Viv, but when a mother says no, she expects that to be the final word. When you have kids, you will understand. From my point of view, everyone is questioning my parental decisions. Does not feel good being called an a-hole for saying no to my kid. Why do cousins need to have an opinion about what happened, let alone strangers? Maybe selfish was the wrong word to use for your behavior. That's fine. OOP. I'm not even sure what to say to that. OOP. You say you understand it's not actually about the phone, but like, do you understand that how you went about this was hurtful and that you've continued to be hurtful about it for years? OP. There are literally comments talking about gaslighting me about this. OOP. Did you show Dad, Mom? Yes. OP. And? Mom. Dad says we need to both get over it. I would like to, but for some reason it keeps being brought up. OP. I would also love to get over it, but you are one of the ones who keep bringing it up. OP. Again, it feels like you keep retelling the story just to tell a story about me being selfish and for no other reason. Mom. Jay brings it up too. OOP. Jay brings it up to emphasize your behavior sometimes. IDKOOP. I think the rest of the family want it to be a funny story and it isn't for us. OOP. I am happy to never bring it up again. OOP. I'm sick of talking about it. OP. But that means you can't bring it up again either. OOP. If you do, I'll show people the Reddit post. LOL. Mom, that's fine. Mom, going to bed now. Love you. OP, night. Please call me tomorrow. Conversation between OOP and her brother, JJ. FFS's phone gate finally over. OOP. LOL, maybe she said you have to stop talking about it. J. OK _hand. IDGF. Top comments. Commenter 1. I commented on your original post, but in my mind I had predicted that this was going to be a reaction. This is such a frustrating response, but just accept it and roll with it. Some people will just never admit that they are wrong. That takes a lot of grace, and I'm sorry. A person who can't help but berate her own daughter is incapable of having such grace. So why keep that expectation? I mean, if the verdict would have been that you indeed were the asshole, she would have rubbed it in your face, but since she has been named the asshole, she wants to move on with life and forgive and forget. This was behavior that I think we all predicted. Maybe she should have thought twice before suggesting you put the story on Reddit. LOL. Can't complain about strangers commenting on your bad parenting when it was your idea to open it up to discussion in the first place. You have just given a second example of her hypocrisy. Sorry if that's hurtful. She's your mother, but as an internet stranger, who saw your story that was approved by your mother to be posted and is hence proof that none of the details are fabricated or untrue, that story truly did not paint a respectable picture of your mother in my head. All I see is a selfish, manipulative parent who continues to be so in the screenshots you have shared. Anyway, what can you do? Take care and hopefully y'all will be okay. Commenter 2. Your mom is just being so frustrating and upsetting. WTF. She can avoid and deny to face the reality all she wants, but at least next time if she brings it up again, you can just show the post to shut her mouth. Even reading this already makes me so furious. I guess it's because I also have a mom who's super entitled. I'm sorry you're going through this, but I hope she'll STF you from now on. My daughter banned me from her wedding. So I secretly canceled the whole thing I paid for. It's absolutely true that no one can harm you more than your own children. My circumstances are identical. Ava, my 27-year-old daughter, forbade me from going to her wedding. For the past week, I've been drinking and pouting. Her wedding, which I financed, was scheduled for yesterday. Yes, it was a wedding present that I was paying for. Ava was a challenging youngster. When she told me about her wedding preparations, I was relieved that she was finally getting married to someone she loved because I had a lot of nightmares while raising her. I helped since she and her fiancé were struggling financially and couldn't plan a good wedding. What do I receive in exchange? I was not allowed to go. The devastation is beyond words. I added my brother to the guest list by calling the wedding planner a few days ago. The guest list was full, he claimed. To see if we could arrange anything, I requested him to email me the whole guest list. He said that Ava had told him to keep the guest list private. I informed him that since I was her father and the one covering the wedding expenses, they had best follow my instructions. Despite his reluctance, he sent me the list when I threatened to call his boss. My heart sank when I saw that. I wasn't on it with my wife. Since neither my wife's nor my name was listed, I called the wedding coordinator once more and insisted there must have been an error. He clarified that he had been expressly instructed not to mention our names. Until he shared the email exchange between him and Ava, I couldn't believe it. They were told to prevent us from entering the venue, which made the situation worse. How devastating must that have been? Although I was aware of my daughter's animosity toward me, I never would have guessed that it would reach a level where she would not let me attend her wedding. She was at her bachelorette party that day, so when I frantically called her, her phone was on voicemail. She didn't call that day or the following, despite my message requesting her to do so. I arrived at her flat, where she and her fiancé were residing, on the third day, right before the wedding. She said that she was too busy getting ready for her wedding to meet with me. She was avoiding me since, by that point, the wedding planner had informed her that I was aware of the guest list. I went there to ask her a question, but her demeanor simply made me more irate. I informed her that I was aware that she had prevented me from going to the wedding. Well, good for you, was her response. Traveling to the location saved you time and effort. If I have time, I will forward the wedding photos. I went utterly insane. This was all there was, no explanation, no regret, no apology. Her cruelty made me cry. Tears filled my eyes as I questioned what I had done wrong to merit this. She said that I had always mistreated her, first by slapping a stepmother in her face and then by siding with other people. Even when she was at fault, she wanted me to stand up for her without reservation. When she harassed my sister's daughter, how could I stand up for her? When she was discovered using pills in class, I did defend her and prevented her from getting expelled. I helped her get into college. But she decided to remain unappreciative in spite of everything I accomplished. She accused me of generating negativity in her home when she noticed me crying. I reminded her that her wedding was being paid for by me. She became hostile and claimed that I owed her this and that I wasn't doing her any favors. I went crazy and told her that I owed her nothing. This wedding was a favor and I had done more than enough. She said she didn't have time for my emotional drama and asked me to go. When I got home, I sobbed uncontrollably in front of my wife, Mercy, who is Ava's stepmother. Mercy is a good-hearted and forgiving lady, yet she became enraged for the first time when she witnessed me cry. She urged me to do something about Ava. We must stop Ava from feeling entitled to harm us, she continued. Up until a year ago, when she eventually found a respectable job, Ava had been surviving off of my money. She didn't have any money saved for her wedding because of this. I'd had enough. I made the decision to discipline her. I called off all of the wedding plans. I didn't care that I hardly received any money back from the advance payments. I wanted to cancel the wedding planner as well as the wedding location, but I knew that would notify Ava, who could then make other arrangements. I intended to spoil her special day. I allowed her to keep her dress since she already had it. All of this made me feel bad, but after giving it some thought, I knew I had done more than enough for her. Why should I feel bad about interrupting her wedding if she didn't? When the wedding coordinator and the caterers and decorators showed up at the location on the wedding day, they were turned away. When the security showed them the cancellation email, it sparked a flurry of activity. When the wedding planner called to ask for the last payment, I informed them that I was no longer concerned and that they could speak with Ava about it. They informed me that when the venue guards denied Ava access, she got into a fight with them. Her fiancé saved her just in time after she nearly got arrested for trespassing. I had blocked her number when she attempted to contact me. I had denied her entry to the main gate when she arrived at my property. I desired tranquility, but I wasn't scared of her. Talking was pointless since, like she did when I visited her home, her comments would just make me feel worse. She needed to take responsibility for her conduct. She could no longer be repeatedly forgiven as a child. Ava just wanted her friends to attend her wedding, not family. I honored her decision. Fortunately, she had to deal with her friends about the wedding cancellation, so I didn't have to tell them. My parents were the only ones who weren't thrilled with what I accomplished. They said that regardless of how terrible our kids are to us, we should never treat them cruelly. I informed them that Ava was the cause of this. All her life, she had been cruel and egotistical. No matter how hard I try to defend what I did, the guilt still remains. I pretend to be brave, but I secretly regret calling off my own daughter's wedding. My heart has been relieved by writing this down, even if I have no idea why I'm here. Update 1. I appreciate all of your moral support. I didn't think my acts would be praised by others. I was afraid I would be considered a fool for taking such a harsh stance against my own daughter. A few of you inquired as to Ava's history of animosity toward us. I apologize for missing that previously. Here are the specifics. I had no idea how this format operated. My second wife is Mercy, a 45-year-old woman. My kid from my first marriage is named Ava. When Ava was 7 years old, I divorced her mother, my first wife. Ava's mother left me for him after finding someone else. I was granted custody of Ava because they were leaving for Europe and didn't want her. When Ava was 13, I remarried Mercy, and ever since, Mercy and I have had to deal with Ava's anger. Mercy is the object of her intense hatred. When she was a teenager, it made sense. It must have been difficult to watch someone take her mother's place. Mercy, a certified children's counselor and teacher, reassured me that Ava would be all right as an adult. She thought Ava would view me as more than simply her father. She would see me as a person in need of a companion. 5 years after the divorce, I got married in the hopes that Ava would value the fact that I had raised her by myself over those 5 years. Ava was disliked by both her mother and her new spouse. Regretfully, Ava showed absolutely no gratitude. Rather, Ava became increasingly hostile toward Mercy and me. In the hopes that Ava would find friendship there, I had to send her to live with my sister, who had a daughter of the same age, because things had gotten so horrible. After a few months of smooth sailing, my sister gave up less than a year later. Since it was their last year of school, my sister didn't want her daughter's grades to suffer as a result of the petty arguments that Ava and her daughter had, she informed me. I had to return Ava as a result. Ava lived with us until she graduated from high school, although she would spend her breaks with my parents. She eventually declared that she would complete her high school education while residing with them and refused to return home. I made arrangements for carpooling because my parents' residence was far from her school. As long as she was content and peaceful, that arrangement lasted. But her high school grades were terrible when they were released. At that point, I discovered that she had joined the wrong crowd, students who were doing drugs. She wanted to live with my parents because she had a nasty boyfriend. After they went to bed, she would slip out and tour the city until after midnight. Her senior year of high school had to be repeated. Another nightmare was getting her through college. She wouldn't have been accepted any place else due to her bad grades and depressing attitude, so thank God I had some contacts who helped her get a spot at a respectable college. She once again surrounded herself with the wrong crowd and used drugs while she was a college student. She had to go to rehab because things got so out of hand. She finally graduated at age 25, but she had a relapse the year after, so I had to send her back to treatment for a few months. She truly has been a pain in the butt, so calling her such wouldn't be impolite. She has continuously caused me distress, embarrassment, and misery. I'm so grateful for Mercy, my understanding wife. She could have talked me out of leaving Ava if she had been any other lady, but instead she was the one who continually urged me to wait. Mercy has given so much of herself for Ava and me, and I'm so grateful for it. The fact that I got married again, and Mercy even more so, seems to be Ava's biggest grievance. Mercy isn't Native American, you see. The Middle East was the birthplace of her family. Her parents, who were immigrants in the United States, were unable to support their 5 children, so she grew up in an NGO. They came to the United States with nothing after fleeing a war-torn area. I was drawn to Mercy for that reason. Despite having a difficult upbringing and little money, she persevered, obtained a master's degree, found a lucrative teaching position, and established a successful life for herself. Despite being a self-made woman, Ava refers to her as a gold digger. Yes, we have some generational riches because my family has had a successful export company for 2 generations. Since this is my second marriage and her first, Ava thinks Mercy married me for financial gain. Ava argues that if it weren't for financial gain, Mercy wouldn't have married a single father who was 12 years her senior. Mercy is 45 and I'm 57. I don't know who gave Ava these thoughts, but that's why she called Mercy a gold digger. A few of you also inquired as to whether Ava's mother had anything to do with this. In actuality, she hasn't gotten in touch with either Ava or myself since our divorce. All I know is that she was in Germany when I last heard from her. Regarding the present circumstance, Ava attempted to vent her rage by contacting me after I called off her wedding, but I prohibited her from doing so on any platform. When I called off the wedding, my parents were upset and offered to cover the costs if Ava wanted to reschedule. However, Ava betrayed them, saying they were supporting me. Using harsh language, she even threw them out of her house and told them not to come again. Although her teacher, who also happened to attend the same gym as me, was the one who discovered her high school substance use, she blames them for it. Following this, my parents had a change of heart and accepted my decision to call off the wedding. I can't give Ava the right to take advantage of and harm us whatever she pleases. I still haven't heard from her, so I have no idea what she's up to. 10 days after her alleged wedding day, my parents paid her a visit 2 days ago. They are still not married. They're probably arranging a new date or simply haven't followed through. Oh, and I blocked the credit card I was using to make the purchase. She still had access to it, but she hadn't used it much since landing her job. She will probably be upset by this, but I don't care anymore. I don't feel guilty now that I know how she treated my parents. They have always cherished and protected her, and they are in their late 70s. It was right to cut Ava off. Update 2. Hello everyone. Although it has been more than a year since I last updated this topic, I have remained in close contact with all of the people who PM'd me or left comments on the post. A few weeks later, I learned that Ava had married her fiancé in a secret ceremony attended only by their closest friends. I wished her luck in life and was pleased for her. I had no social media connection to her, so I had no idea what was going on in her life. My niece informed me that Ava had changed her Facebook status to reflect her and her husband's move to a nearby city. Before I received a call from an unknown number a week ago, everything in my life was going according to plan. It was Matt, Ava's husband. I was anxious, fearing that she might have suffered some sort of mishap. She wanted to meet me in person, which surprised me, but he reassured me that she was okay. He claimed he would explain when we met when I asked why. He proposed getting together for supper and said he was in town. In my heart, I hoped that this would be an opportunity to make amends with Ava. I believed that Matt was serving as a go-between and that she might be too embarrassed to approach me. I went to see him with great expectations, but to my disappointment, Matt arrived by himself. He said he had no idea where Ava was when I inquired about her. With a sinking heart, I inquired as to her whereabouts. Then he disclosed that they were no longer together. According to Matt, Ava had a history of abuse during their marriage and had a serious problem with anger management. Even over small disagreements, she would hurl objects and smash household objects. For as long as he could, he put up with it, but eventually it got to be too much, and they split up. Matt continued by saying that Ava had psychological problems and attributed any problems she encountered to other people. Because they had relocated to a new city for his work, she and he had many arguments. Ava was angry at him for removing her from her hometown, even though she had secured a comparable well-paying position there. That was only one of their numerous problems. Matt stated he wanted to apologize face-to-face. He acknowledged that he had seen Ava treat me, Mercy, and my parents cruelly, but he chose not to step in since Ava had used him against us all. He felt bad for ignoring the warning signs and causing himself suffering. I informed him that Ava was to blame and that he was not. I held myself partially responsible for not raising her well. I also expressed my regret to him for what he had endured with Ava. Then Matt asked me to do him a favor. He claimed that Ava was pleading with him to take her back since she had been upset by the breakup. But after experiencing her mistreatment, he had lost interest in her. He nevertheless sent her warm wishes and asked if I could help her during this trying period. Because of her rage, Ava had lost all of her true friends and Matt felt I could help her by taking her to therapy. I informed him that although I hoped I could, Ava would not allow me to be close to her. He got it, and we both said we wanted to help Ava if she would let us. I made the decision to go see Ava after that talk. Unfortunately, things didn't work out as planned. She attacked Mercy and me, but I had come by myself so Mercy wouldn't see Ava's anger. In an attempt to soothe her, I apologized. Right or wrong didn't matter to me at the time. I just wanted to assist her. I advised her to see a therapist first, but otherwise, she could say anything she wanted about me. Ava brought up the past without listening. She screamed that she wanted to kill Mercy because she detested her so much. She acknowledged that she was embarrassed by our marriage and embarrassed to introduce Mercy as her stepmother, which is why she had barred us from attending her wedding. She threw me out of the house when I tried to talk sense into her, accusing me of being the cause of all her issues. To be honest, I don't care anymore, and I'm not sure if I was correct or not. I don't know how to help her, but all I want is for her to recover. Update 3. I appreciate all of your moral support. When I created the last update, I was pretty upset, and this place has truly helped me relax. Mercy advised me to get in touch with Ava's school closest buddy. We knew each other well because her family lived next door. I messaged her on social media to explain the situation because she now resides in South Africa. Since she was the only person Ava had never battled with, I requested her to get in touch with Ava in the hopes that she could get through to her. Her buddy promised to assist, and happily she did. Ava committed to therapy, and I think it's going well because she came to see my parents a week ago and expressed regret for her actions. She acknowledged that she was no longer able to contain her hatred because it had become so strong. She still holds me responsible for everything though, and stated that she would never forgive me. I no longer harbor any animosity toward her. Even though I'm not involved, I simply hope she has a happy life. I appreciate your support, everyone. I sincerely hope that no father ever has to deal with their own child's intense hatred. I sincerely appreciate you staying until the very end. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe if you truly enjoy our videos. Enjoy your wonderful day. My sister can't have kids, and now my brother-in-law is stalking me because I refuse to be a surrogate to have a child with their DNA. My sister is identical to me, 30F. For the purposes of this narrative, we will refer to her as Stacy. Our father reared us after our mother tragically died during childbirth. I've been seeing Mike for the past 3 years, while Stacy has been married to Jeff for 8 years. My sister's desire to become a mother is something I've always known about her. She was constantly coming up with ideas for weddings, nursery themes, baby names, etc., even when we were kids. I was always more interested in reading and enjoying yourself. I'm currently working as a flight attendant and trying to have my writing published. My sister has never held a job. To be honest, we enrolled in college right away after high school. After graduating from college, she became a stay-at-home girlfriend to her fiancé, whom she eventually married. I've been aware for some time that my sister has been making fruitless attempts to conceive. Despite spending thousands of dollars on IVF and pretty much everything they could try because she wanted to experience pregnancy, she has had one miscarriage and has not been able to conceive again. They have begun to talk about other choices after 5 years of failure. My sister is keen about having a child that has both of their DNA, her words, not mine, and is not interested in adoption. She visited my place around 3 weeks ago and we were simply chatting and watching Modern Family as normal. She told me she needed to ask me an important question while she still had the courage. She asked if I could be her surrogate, which made me nervous. After a moment of inaction, I asked her what she meant. She said that she needed me to be her surrogate since I understood what a surrogacy meant. She was aware, I said, that I had no desire to have children. I'll be honest and say that I have never found the idea of having children appealing in any way, however this may be because of how we were born. I informed her that although I could not bear her child, I would have no problem giving her my eggs, no matter how many she needed. She was furious when she heard that. She was screaming that it's clear how envious and spiteful I am because this is a simple work, her cheeks flushed. She had always mentioned having more than 4 children, but I didn't want to bring it up. Would I be expected to do this each and every time? I'm beginning to feel terrible, and I'm not sure. In the end, she told me that I could never be her sister if I couldn't do this one thing for her. She rushed out after smashing a photo of us that I had on my mantle. Since then, she has only sent me images of her vision boards and diaries from when we were children, claiming that I'm preventing her from starting a family pointlessly and that I should see the wider picture. Because it's such a sensitive topic, my boyfriend doesn't feel comfortable trying to influence me in either direction and won't give me advice, claiming that it belongs to my sister. Sincerely, this is the longest period of time I have ever gone without speaking to my sister, and I'm so close to caving in. Is it incorrect of me to refuse to act as my sister's surrogate? Edit, As I read over all of the comments, I would like to express my gratitude. Knowing that I am not the villain makes me feel so much better, but I would be lying if I claimed that I am not inclined to just do it. I can't articulate how much this distance from my sister makes me feel, but I see too many questions that I want to respond to in the hopes of receiving other answers. Money. My mother's death was caused by a provider error rather than natural causes. My sister and I don't have to worry about money because we have substantial trust from the money my father used to fight the hospital. Not working for 9 months or having to pay for the egg retrieval procedure, etc., is not a problem at all because her spouse is also financially secure. The fact that the baby shares our DNA and that one of us is carrying it because we are identical is more a result of her stubbornness. How can I conceive if she can't? We were involved in an automobile accident that prevented her from becoming pregnant and caused her to miscarry. She and our father received the brunt of the collision because they were in the front seat. She has experienced severe difficulties with egg retrieval, and regrettably, her body is no longer capable of bearing a kid. I don't know exactly how that went wrong, but I do know that it isn't working and isn't an option. Getting her to talk about non-viable choices so I can better grasp them is difficult. I don't have a child, so doctors won't let me be a surrogate. I greatly appreciate your knowledge. We always watch football with our dads and significant others, so this Thursday we're having a family supper. If she chooses to go, this subject will undoubtedly come up. Update 1, 2 days later. I promised to give you an update tomorrow, but last night, while I was hanging out, my dad called and invited me over for supper so we could talk. I want to start by expressing my gratitude for all of the advice and comments. Not only were some of you rude to me, but also to my sister and boyfriend. I still value the assistance. When my dad called, I assumed he had spoken to Stacy, so I didn't even inquire what it was about. I know you guys won't be pleased based on the responses, but I asked my partner where he thought he would be if I went forward with it. He assured me that he loved me and would be there for me no matter what, but he would not stand by and watch while my sister treated me like garbage if I was acting in this way under duress. I genuinely fully understand his statement that he wouldn't be able to support me. My sister and brother-in-law were already at my dad's when we arrived for dinner. When we walked in, I spoke to both of them, but only my sister answered. My brother-in-law met my partner alone and gave me the most repulsive look. There was an uneasy stillness and tension that might have been sliced with a butcher knife when my dad seated us down at the table. "Somebody talk," he said. "This has to be fixed before tomorrow night's game." My dad is a huge football fan, haha. I began by informing her that I had done some research and that, in addition to my original worries, I now had a few more and needed to know precisely what she needed from me. I started by asking her what it would be like to be a surrogate. "Are you agreeing to it?" she said. She started crying when I informed her that I simply wanted more information. Considering that I have never successfully carried a kid to term, I asked her if she was aware that a doctor might reject me as a surrogate. She claimed to be aware of this and to have simply sent my brother-in-law and I to a center of excellence, so we could act like a couple. After my successful insemination, I would ask that provider to transfer me to her OB/GYN so that I could continue receiving care. My father stepped in and told me that it was a bad idea to try to become a mother by asking me to do something that a doctor wouldn't approve. He didn't want to take sides, but it was clear that he didn't agree with any of it. My brother-in-law interrupted him by saying, "Don't try to berate my wife with these stupid questions." After he asked her why she felt so uneasy about the thought of a surrogate. "Discuss with your self-centered daughter the reasons for her inability to assist her sister." That changed the atmosphere right away. When my partner called me a B***, he began to yell at me. My father told him that he was not allowed to treat his daughters disrespectfully in his house. Everything simply caught fire. My sister was sobbing and pleading with me to do her this favor. I was afraid and didn't want to die, so I told her that I would switch places with her if we could. That was probably the first time I had ever spoken that out. After that, we were unable to settle any further issues. My brother-in-law lost his temper and refused to apologize, so my dad asked him to leave. As he was leaving, my sister invited me to come chat to her alone on the porch and told him she would meet him in the car. She said she was simply on edge and it had been hectic, and she apologized for her husband calling me a B***tech when we went out. I told her that we needed to work things out and that she shouldn't apologize for him. "You don't get it, you don't understand," she said repeatedly as she urged me to think again. She told me that her in-laws had cruelly joked at one of their recent dinners that she was a murderer, referring to the kid she lost, when I pushed her for further information. She claimed that when she questioned her husband about why he didn't defend her during the joke, he responded that it was true. He made strange remarks about how he was eager to see their child's appearance and that she couldn't make up for it. She suggested that I carry the child, and he was completely on board with the idea since he claimed he would never be able to look into a child and see pieces of both of them. She thought it was her idea, but the way she stated it, it sounded like he sowed the seed. She stated she only wanted my assistance to get things back to normal because she hadn't seen him so enthusiastic since the baby. I tried to tell her that what she was attempting to accomplish was incorrect and that nothing would ever be normal again. She replied she would call me later, but he began honking the horn and hurried her to the car. I am not even willing to donate my eggs so that she might have a child with him, even though I feel like I might lose my sister. I looked into the egg donation procedure as you suggested and wow, it was quite different from what I had anticipated. Her divorcing him is what I want. I will never assist her in having children with that man. I honestly believe that before I ever let her implant his child in me or use my eggs to even conceive a child with him, I would serve as a surrogate for her to become a single mother. I was unaware of how much shame his family was forcing on her. Every time my phone rings, I literally jump at it because I know she will be calling soon and I will have to let her know. I can't and won't do this. Even though I'm afraid I'll lose my sister. I appreciate all of your help, but I probably won't update anymore. Update 2. 1 week later. Although I know I promised to stop updating, a lot has happened, and I can't even begin to describe the strange sense of comfort I get from writing my insanity on this page. Many of you advised me to use greater caution around my brother-in-law out of concern that he would turn violent. I'm kicking myself now for not paying attention. I believed this to be a minor setback and that I knew my family well enough. How incredibly gullible of me. The day after he called me a b****, my sister called me back the next morning, but I was in the shower and missed the call. There was no answer when I called back. Before we arrived at my father's place that evening for football, the day was typical. My sister had just in after kickoff. My dad was asked to step outside and speak with her spouse. Since the game was on and he had the option of waiting until the commercial break or coming in and apologizing like a man in front of everyone who saw him treat me disrespectfully, my dad said no. She inhaled and pointed out that he wasn't being entirely honest. My father became enraged when she attempted to make similarities to a past circumstance. He apologized for failing her as a father and assured her that he didn't train her to be weak and insignificant for a man. He also added that whatever he did led her to believe that this was the way to have a healthy relationship. Without saying another word, she simply rushed out as her eyes began to water. After the game, I had a smashed front passenger window and 2 flat tires when I went outside to my car. After putting 2 extra tires on the automobile and towing it into his garage with his truck, my dad instructed me to take his second car. "Don't worry," he replied. He would fix the car and I could come retrieve it whenever I had time. I said no when he asked if I wanted to spend the night. My sister didn't pick up when I called her. "I can't believe this is where we are," I texted her, adding a few more words to keep some of it hidden. "It should never be necessary to destroy your family in order to love a man." "That's the problem," she said in response. "You refuse to assist me in rebuilding my family, which has already been ruined." After that, I tried phoning her again, but she didn't pick up. I saw a car following me on the way home. Upon gaining a clearer perspective, I recognized the vehicle as belonging to my sister's mother-in-law. She has an extremely unique car decal that I have never seen anywhere else, which is the only reason I knew this. In a panic, I called my boyfriend and asked him to come back to my house. The automobile came up behind me as I pulled into my driveway. Fortunately, by the time my brother-in-law exited his mother's car and attempted to approach me, my partner was turning down the street. My boyfriend was shouting at him as he ran out of his car. Jeff began shouting right away. "I simply wanted to apologize. I only wanted to say I'm sorry." After a brief altercation with my boyfriend, Jeff returned to his mother's vehicle and drove away. Although it didn't seem deliberate, he did collide with my boyfriend's car throughout the process, and it is still operable. I must admit that after this, I no longer felt quite at home. I haven't actually been home since I packed my bags and left for my boyfriend's house. Even though I know I will eventually have to return, I'm not entirely sure I want to. Even if my dad installed a camera and floodlights to the driveway and back door. Yes, I did contact my sister, but neither that evening nor the next day did she reply in any way. Then I began to see a black automobile following me one day and a red one the next. I know you could say I was frightened and only dreaming, but I would see them begin to follow until I drove in the direction of the police station, as instructed by my dad, and then they would stop as soon as they saw the station. I joined a few pals for breakfast on Sunday to celebrate a friend's impending nuptials and talk about the specifics of the bridal shower. The waiter approached me and informed me that there was an emergency and that my spouse was up front. I walked up to see my brother-in-law, assuming it was my boyfriend and she was just misinformed. In an attempt to avoid creating a commotion, I walked up to him, spoke softly, and told him to go or I would contact my father. He informed me that he just wanted to apologize because everything had just gotten out of hand. It was odd since we were sort of in the doorway and people were rushing in and saying, "Excuse me." I therefore proposed that we move outside to clear the area. He stated he didn't mean to call me a b****, and apologized when we got outside. I interrupted him when he said that I didn't understand how difficult it was for him. Stating that I didn't care since his actions were getting too aggressive and disorderly, not only toward my sister, but toward everyone else as well. He begged me to think again, but he acknowledged that he could understand how I could feel that way. I immediately retreated and urged him to go as he reached for my stomach. I mentioned that my dad's stalking was a problem and that we could arrange a time to speak, or I would call the police. He grabbed a handful of my hair as I was making my way back inside the restaurant and said, "Don't you effing walk away from me." After that, I honestly don't recall much because everything happened so fast and several onlookers became involved. Although he ultimately ran away before the police could reach him, a report was made. Similar to what happened at the restaurant, He attempted to approach my airport terminal 2 days earlier, claiming to be my spouse and informing them of an emergency. He refused to leave and was taken into custody. Naturally, he received bail and has since started sending me the most disgusting messages. After the performance he gave at my employment, my sister did leave him. She has been pleading with me to drop the charges, using her current residence with our father as justification. Despite my actual scalp bleeding from the force with which he pulled my hair and the minor scratches on my arms and neck from when he continued to act aggressively when strangers attempted to assist, she has been certain that he did not hit me at the restaurant. In some of the texts he sends me, he describes the horrible things he will do to me, such as how he will get me pregnant and keep me with him forever. How he knows I am the woman who will give birth to his kid, and how if I don't make things easy for him, we will both pass away before he quits up. Just some extremely alarming things. All of these are coming from different texting applications because I banned his number. When I told the police, they indicated that nothing could be done until he took action because there was no way to verify that it was him. I literally live in constant fear. In addition to the usual safety measures I take, I'm taking even more care now that my boyfriend takes me to work. I have trouble falling asleep. My sister has stopped communicating with me, and I send her a screenshot each time her husband messages me. My dad has urged me to stop because it's hurting her, but I told him that she needed to understand the abuse her husband is causing and that I couldn't believe she stood up for him during some of this. I feel like I've lost. My sister and I may not even be able to recover from this. I feel awful because I feel like I've essentially taken over my boyfriend's life. He hasn't mentioned it, but because I'm afraid, he occasionally has to cut short his usual gym sessions if he needs to pick me up or leave me off when I have to go somewhere else or work. He can do more of his routine when he's gone for a day because of flights, but we're essentially compelled to live together now. I like it, but I don't know if he does. I can't breathe, and I feel like my life is slowly spiraling into lunacy because of the dispute we had the other day about the AC temperature. Update 3. 1 week later. Hello. My brother-in-law is currently stalking me, but I'm not sure where to begin. He wants me to have his child, but I don't want to delve into the specifics. Regretfully, the narrative only becomes more disorganized. The police said that the texts coming in from unknown numbers couldn't be linked to him. So I unblocked him after others advised me to do so. He has messaged me a few times from his real number, stating that we need to speak and reach a consensus. Naturally, I haven't participated. The disgusting texts from odd numbers have persisted. I always feel like someone is following me, but I can't be sure. I feel like a blue car is following me when I go to Dunkin' for coffee. I've really taken a leave of absence from work because I've reached this point. I've moved in with my now fiancé and entirely abandoned my apartment. He was there when I went grocery shopping a few days ago. His hand rubbed my back as he came up behind me. I yelled and leaped to get his attention, and he feigned confusion by raising his hands and saying, "I'm sorry, I'll leave you alone." I'm sorry. The witnesses essentially accepted his apologies on my behalf and sent him on his way because he appeared so sincere. I was literally unable to breathe, speak, or even form words other than "someone help." I was so powerless. My apartment was broken into and left in ruins the next day. I received a strange number the next day with the warning, "It'll only get worse." I'm afraid. Right now my sister lives with my dad, and she is certain that it isn't her husband. He's been in contact with her regarding obtaining a fresh perspective and leaving the state because he feels like he's been unhinged and needs to re-enter, she said, adding that things went too far. I am at a loss as to how to persuade her that he is lying. It appears that the cops won't assist him because he hasn't done anything wrong. For anything to happen, I feel like I need to die or have him seriously damage me. Help me, please. Since I'm in the United States right now, I would appreciate it if you could let me know about any laws that would be of assistance, or encourage the police to be more helpful. I'm having trouble falling asleep, and I'm getting to the point where I don't want to leave my apartment. Help me, please. Update 4. Even though this has been completely crazy, Reddit will always hold a special place in my heart. I will make this as brief as possible. My partner questioned me why I was looking at flats once he learned that I was going to rent one for a short time like a fool. He proposed to me right away after I informed him that I thought he needed his space back. I'm actually engaged right now. Taking over his flat has made me feel much better, haha. I explained that my brother-in-law was getting out of hand in a post in the advice subreddit. He came up to me at a grocery store, and I didn't do well defending myself there. It wasn't my best moment. He shattered a few items in my kitchen, damaged my bedroom, and broke into my house. He is aware of my passion for my espresso machine and mugs. Yes, cameras were later placed, but I wasn't present. During my leave of absence, I essentially kept hidden away in my fiancé's apartment. Before I received a surprise call, my sister had been ignoring my texts and not interacting with me. She was crying on the phone when I answered. I thought something had happened to our dad, so I asked her what was wrong. She clarified that she knew her husband was following me because she had been monitoring him. She claimed that she was telling me because she had gone to the police, who had informed her that they would send someone to speak with me. We spent 5 hours on the phone. My light bulb went off after the hair-pulling incident and I went into investigative mode, she explained. She claimed that she chose to call the police because she was worried about my safety at that point. She expressed regret for putting me under so much stress. Although she would want to put all the blame on her spouse, she admitted that a small part of her was astonished when I said no. She clarified that she doesn't care about the DNA issue. My brother-in-law was the one who demanded it. All she wanted was for her family to be whole. She will be temporarily living with me at my house until the divorce is finalized and everything has calmed down. They have a prenuptial agreement, so it shouldn't be too difficult, but I'm sure he won't make the divorce simple. A side note. When my father slipped and revealed that my sister's husband had broken into my house, I did learn of it. It seems like she kept the knowledge because she needed to make a decision. He claimed that after she told him, he told her she had no other option and forced her to leave right away. It seems that she didn't fight very hard. I'm not really sure how I feel about this, but my dad stated that he believes she only needed someone to say it to her in order for her to understand. I'm glad she ultimately made the right choice. The following day, the cops arrived at my fiance's flat. After I gave my statement, they told me that they wanted to have an agent drive an unmarked car around me for a day and that he would be arrested if he followed me. They said that it would happen right away and that I shouldn't panic if I thought I was being followed, but they didn't tell me which automobile was after me. In essence, he was apprehended just 2 hours after I left my fiance's residence. He was stopped and taken into custody as we drew into the third place where we went on a date. That night at the restaurant, I had more margaritas than I should have. I was informed by the detective that I will receive a call from the DA's office, which I believe will happen tomorrow. Given the way things have gone, I honestly don't think they'll hold him to much, but I do hope that since they have his phone, they will be able to physically verify that he was texting me, which will increase the severity of his sentence. This week, I have my first flight back to work, and I can't wait to resume my regularly planned routine. I had the opportunity to watch the fantastic football games today with my sister, dad, and fiance. I sincerely hope I never need to edit this again. Many thanks to all of you. I refuse to force my son to forgive my brother after he excluded him from his wedding. Now my family's divided over it. Allow her to organize everything, including the location, cuisine, music, etc. In July of last year, Karen made the decision to organize a destination wedding at a posh resort. The invitation arrived, and it was sent to my son and myself. I tried to book our hotel room as soon as the page launched, and I even had a +1 if I wanted to. To be clear, I couldn't risk not getting a room, therefore I had to call the hotel to make my reservation because the link wasn't working. The email confirmation stated room for 2 adults, but I didn't give it much thought because I thought the hotel representative's language barrier might have caused the error. At about the same time, I also purchased our airline tickets. Less than a month before the wedding, in January, my sister-in-law contacted me in tears and told me that Karen had messed up. My kid was 13 at the time, and it seems that the resort was adults only, meaning that no one under the age of 16 was permitted. When I requested whether Leo and I might stay at another hotel, they informed me that my son would not even be permitted to attend the ceremony or the reception because the entire resort was child-free. Disappointed, I promised my sister-in-law that I would discuss it with my son. She insisted that she and Jack wanted to inform him in person, even though I knew how thrilled he was about his uncle's wedding. To be honest, when my son was informed that he couldn't go, he broke down in tears. He begged them to reschedule the wedding, even providing his savings as collateral. After 30 minutes of this, my sister-in-law became irate and informed him that the day wasn't about him and that he was being self-centered. After a while, Leo apologized and retired to his room. My son ceased communicating with my brother after the wedding. Unless it was specifically concerning me, such as when Jack had to relay a message because he couldn't get through to me, Leo would ignore any messages that Jack sent him. Leo would only answer simple queries like, "Can you pass the salt?" or "Help grandma with the plates" at family get-togethers, but he would turn his back on my brother if Jack or Mary attempted to strike up a discussion or inquire about his schooling. To make up for the wedding, Jack and Mary offered to take my son on a special spring break vacation a month after the wedding, but he turned them down and subsequently informed me he didn't want to go. He adhered to his decision, which was terrible because I knew he truly wanted to go there and I wasn't yet able to finance it. The same thing occurred on Leo's birthday. As I do every year, he inquired whether I was going to throw him a party. When I replied that I was, he asked me not to bring his aunt and uncle. He only stated that if they didn't want him on their special day, he didn't want them on his. I attempted to persuade him to invite them because they are family and were truly sorry. When I told my brother he wasn't invited, he started crying. This past weekend, when we were at my mom's house and the topic of Leo's plans for college came up, things became heated. My mother urged Leo to begin making plans after asking him if he still intended to attend the same institution as Jack. Leo responded that he had changed his mind and was no longer interested. In response, my son said he had decided to study something else because he was no longer interested. "I thought you wanted to be like your uncle," my mother then asked. "Why would I want to be like him?" was my son's recent response. I stepped in at this moment and reminded Leo that his rudeness was unnecessary, but the harm had already been done. After hearing what he had to say, my brother and sister-in-law quickly departed. My brother texted me last night, accusing me of being bad for letting my kid harbor this resentment. He even said that I wasn't attempting to mend their relationship because I was jealous of it. I retorted that he was solely responsible for allowing his mother-in-law to arrange a wedding where my child was not welcome and that these were the results of his own behavior. He ended the call. My mother and a few other family members believe that in order for us to move on, I should make my kid forgive my brother, claiming that it was only a little error and that there was no malice. But I don't concur. My kid was obviously harmed, and he should only be given the opportunity to move past his hurt and forgive them when he is ready. Edit. I apologize for not getting back to you yesterday. After viewing the Civ 7 revelation, I became preoccupied with a Civ 6 game. Now that I've read through every remark, I wanted to respond to a topic that keeps coming up. I wasn't at the wedding. It didn't feel right to leave after what had happened, and I didn't want to leave my son alone while the majority of the family was away. Leo's tone, more than the words he used, was impolite in his response to Grandma's query. He provoked his uncle with a tone that I've seen him employ previously and am familiar with. He was attempting to start a quarrel, not only answering an improper query. I have respected his boundaries and understand his pain and anger, but that doesn't mean I have to put up with his acting aggressively whenever he feels like it. As for the actual conversation, let me summarize what Mary, my son, and I said. Mary: "We made a mistake and you won't be able to go to the wedding." Leo: "But why? I want to go and you invited me." Mary said: "The venue only accepts adults, you can't enter." Leo said: "Can't you make an exception?" Me: "Leo, they can't. Do you recall being informed that they couldn't have kids in the bar when you applied for a part-time job there? That's how it is." Leo says: "Can't you get married somewhere else?" Mary: "We are unable to. We have already spent a lot of money on that location." Leo replied: "I can give you my savings." Mary: "It's insufficient. Additionally, none of the guests want to forfeit the money they have already spent." Leo: "My father is wealthy. I can leave if he gives you money. It's unfair. I want to attend the wedding." Jack: "Leo, I apologize, but we can make it right. After the wedding, how about we take you to Greece?" Leo: "I don't want to go to Greece," he said, growing increasingly agitated. "I'd like to attend the wedding. Why do you not want me to be there?" Me: "It was an error, Leo. We were unaware that there was a minimum age limit, but they wanted you there." Leo: "That's unfair. Then why did you invite me? On my uncle's special day I would like to be with him." "This is not our fault," Mary exclaimed, raising her voice. "You have to let it go, it simply occurred. I'm sorry you can't make it, but you must quit being so self-centered. It's not your special day, it's mine." It was then that Leo lost it. I tried to comfort him and gave Mary a shut-up look without saying anything, as I indicated in a previous comment. Jack did say something to her, but I was unable to understand what he was saying. Leo apologized and begged to retire to his room after he had cooled down. Jack and Mary made an effort to apologize, but Leo ignored them. My kid requested me to go, but I followed him to his room to check on him. I returned to the living area. "What the devil is wrong with you?" I asked. "It is not your place to shout at my son." Mary: "I apologize, I simply have too much stress. For the past 2 months, my mom and I have been at odds over this." Me: "I don't give a damn. You made it worse when I told you over the phone that he would be disappointed. Leave." Jack: "Jacob, please. It wasn't her intention. I'll compensate Leo." Me: "I don't care," I said. "Leave." After they departed, I went to see how Leo was doing. I don't remember everything that was said because I don't have a photographic memory, but that's the main idea of what transpired that day. Update 1. In a nutshell, We will no longer be going to family gatherings. My brother promised to respect my son's boundaries after we spoke. He also described the actual events. Leo is currently doing a lot better. Longer update. I told my mother that until things settled down and, more crucially, until Leo felt at ease again, we would both no longer attend family events. She was obviously unhappy, but it appeared that she had now realized how much Leo had been harmed by her persistence. Surprisingly, she explained that she was so adamant that Leo forgive Jack because he had fallen into depression. Leo might become estranged from the family if I made him forgive his uncle, I informed her. When I informed my sister that we would no longer be going to events, she was equally upset, but she understood. In order for the children to continue spending time together, she recommended that we establish our own weekly ritual. Over the last few weeks, Leo has spent time at my sister's house 1 week and her kids have visited me the following. Leo appears okay with this arrangement, and it's beneficial that grown-ups aren't pressuring him to talk to his uncle. I texted my brother the weekend after my post to arrange a private meeting so we could chat. Mary wasn't present. Jack quickly expressed his regret for his actions and the things he had said to me. He verified my suspicions. He had been under stress due to frequent arguments with Mary and had even contemplated divorce due to the severity of the situation. I assured him I wasn't worried about it, even though it might sound harsh. I hoped he would be honest with me about what had transpired. Jack insists that it wasn't until late November that he learned the venue was child-free. But Mary had known for a long time, perhaps since the beginning, as many of you suspected. It seems that this all began when Jack and Mary took Leo to the beach a few years back. My son unintentionally called Jack Dad when they were playing, but he swiftly corrected himself. Jack said it was simply a minor lapse, similar to when a toddler calls a teacher mom. Jack dismissed Leo's embarrassment with a laugh. The catch? During that vacation, Jack's father-in-law, Phil, and mother-in-law Karen, were present and heard Leo. Knowing that Mary couldn't have children, Karen lost it when they got back from the trip and said she was triggered by witnessing a random child call Jack Dad. Karen became poisonous and hostile toward Mary, making demands such as preventing Leo from being present during her visits, despite Mary's attempts to clarify that it was simply an innocent error. Karen coerced Mary into allowing her to organize the ideal wedding for her only daughter, despite Jack and Mary's initial desire to elope and forego a lavish ceremony. After years of manipulating emotions, Mary ultimately gave in an attempt to maintain harmony. Karen then took over the wedding plans and deliberately picked a location that would not accommodate children. When Mary tried to protest after learning that the venue was reserved, Karen played the victim and dismissed her worries. Even if they slept at a different hotel, Mary said she tried to work out a deal with the resort that would let kids attend just the ceremony and reception. The management, however, refused to change the policy. Mary became more and more nervous as the date drew near, and in November she told Jack the truth. My brother claims that Mary finally snapped at Leo, in part because to her own mother's persistent manipulation and bullying, and in part because she felt guilty for allowing things to get to this point. Jack informed me that instead of excluding Leo and my sister's kids from the wedding, he would have called it off if he had known sooner. However, it was impossible to cancel by November since too many attendees had already reserved hotel rooms and flights. None of this, I informed Jack, justified the way he and Mary had handled Leo, particularly Mary. Even though she was older than 40, she nonetheless picked a battle with a toddler. Because Leo intended to utilize the £2,000 he had saved to attend Jack's wedding, she had screamed at him and called him selfish. I reminded Jack that he had disappointed Leo, who admired him and considered him a hero. Leo had learned that Jack didn't value him as much as he had assumed. I informed Jack that I would go low contact myself and that I would back Leo's decision to stop communicating with him. Jack requested an opportunity to apologize to Leo, but I informed him that he had already done so and that his only option was to wait for Leo to accept it. Although Jack appeared offended, he promised to honor our requests and give us some space and time. Regarding my son, I expressed my regret to him for not advocating for him earlier and for making him go to weekly family events. I informed him that going future, he was free to choose how he wanted to manage that aspect of the family. I informed Leo that I would be there for him no matter what and that I wouldn't be disappointed if he decided to quit going entirely, even if he looked hesitant to do so. I was pleased when Leo proposed that we spend more time together, alone, doing things he used to do with my brother, rather than attending weekly family events. We attended a vintage car exhibition last week, and we're going to see Wicked the following week. It sounds like fun, but I'm not a theatrical person. Leo shouldn't hold back simply because he had a falling out with someone he cared about, I told him, adding that I was concerned he had stopped doing things he enjoyed. In essence, I informed him that he could still enjoy those activities, alone or with someone else. He acknowledged that, in spite of Jack, He had ceased doing them even though he really wanted to. I then made the decision to buy him some games that he had been looking forward to but had refunded following the altercation with my brother as an early Christmas present. He even persuaded me to join him on his PS5 for a game of Final Fantasy Online while he plays on his PC. He seems to like watching me fail, even though I'll admit that I have no idea what I'm doing because the last Final Fantasy game I played was still in 2D. We would appreciate any advice you may have. For my birthday, we ultimately agreed to travel to his ideal location. I was a little disappointed that I won't be celebrating my brother's birthday for the first time in almost 50 years, but all that matters is that I have my son. It's a relief that Leo is content and less anxious about family issues. It's also encouraging that the family appears to be finally recognizing our limits. All I can hope for is that my brother can improve his marriage. Even though I'm angry at what they did, I do want him to be content. Dad wants me back to avoid my grandpa's financial penalty after kicking me out and lying about the rent. At the age of 14, I, F21, lost my mother. I was 17 when my dad got married again. In addition to my stepmother's daughter, F15, they also had a boy, M3, and a tiny girl recently. I've been working since I was 16 in order to save money for personal purchases. When I turned 18, my father told me that although he would still pay for food and other necessities, I was now an adult and should begin paying a symbolic $500 in rent. We argued and I was unhappy, but in the end, I accepted this agreement. Dad told me 7 months ago that I had 2 months to leave because stepmom was expecting a kid and they would need my room. Considering that they both have private offices and that stepmom hasn't had a job since the birth of my baby brother, this was odd. They insisted that I move out though. To be clear, there isn't much drama or conflict between stepmom and me. Who knows, but I don't believe this was an evil stepmom act. I'm actually pretty close to my stepsister. I support her with her schoolwork and help her work through her personal issues. I adore her. To recap, I was at a loss for what to do. I can't afford to live alone because I work part-time and attend college to study civil engineering. In order to find a solution, I called my aunt and asked if I might stay with her for a while, offering to pay the rent. She said I could live with her for free because she was surprised by what my dad was doing, but she also promised to speak with my dad. When Grandpa visited our home the following day, he and Dad had a private discussion. Although I couldn't hear the words, I did hear Dad's irate voice. Grandpa eventually arrived at my room and gave me 3 options. First, I could stay with Dad and stepmom without paying rent. Secondly, I could live with my aunt or with Grandpa and Grandma. Third, Grandpa would pay my rent and other bills while I found a place of my own. He said I could stay with Dad if I wanted to and that I didn't have to make a decision right away. At first I was happy that I could stay since I believed that everything had been settled. However, Dad and stepmom became openly hostile toward me in the days and weeks that followed, and I felt very uneasy in my own house. Cassie, my stepsister, even saw and inquired as to why they were upset with me. When I finally made the decision to move out, I told Grandpa, who promised to take care of everything. He relocated me into one of his rental apartments a few weeks later. Grandpa purchased me necessities like a stove and refrigerator, and the flat is beautiful. He even gave me a check for $15,000, claiming that it would assist me start living on my own and that I could stay there for as long as I wanted without paying rent as long as I was working or studying. My dad and I haven't spoken much since I moved out. Even though I miss everyone, especially my stepsister, he hasn't come, and I haven't gone to see them either. I'm still hurt though. My stepmom gave birth 2 weeks ago. It was pleasant, if a little odd, to visit them in the hospital. A few days later, Dad called to tell me that I should return home since he and the kids missed me. He went into endless detail about how much he regretted asking me to leave. I promised to give it some thought. I went to see my aunt yesterday and shared what Dad had said with her. With a laugh, my cousin said, "I'm sure he does." I wanted to know what he meant. They then disclosed a great deal of information that I was previously unaware of. It turns out that my aunt's house and Dad's house are actually owned by Grandpa. To ensure that no one in the family would have to worry about necessities like food and housing, Grandpa had formed a similar arrangement with all of his children and some grandchildren. I had called my aunt at the time, and she had called Grandpa, who was upset with Dad for charging me rent in addition to putting me out. Grandpa visited our home that day and sternly reprimanded Dad, even threatening to kick him out. The petty part begins here. Do you recall the $15K that Grandpa gave me? Over time, I paid Dad that much in rent and now Grandpa is forcing him to reimburse me. In addition, Dad is being charged $1,200 by Grandpa to cover the rent loss on the apartment where I currently reside. I may be naive, but I was unaware that Dad wasn't earning much money by himself until recently. We had a lovely home, vacations, and a comfortable lifestyle, but I suppose Grandpa was pitching in behind the scenes. With 3 children living at home, a single source of income, and the additional burden of repaying Grandpa, my cousin believes Dad is currently having financial difficulties. According to my cousin, Dad wants me to return home because he thinks that if I do, Grandpa won't punish me as much. To be honest, I have no idea what to do. Although I've been enjoying living alone for the past 6 months, I still miss them. I miss the life we had before everything happened, and I miss my siblings. But I'm also offended since it appears that money is the true reason he wants me back. First update. Let me make it clear that my grandfather and aunt are from my father's side of the family before I respond to some queries. I don't have a lot of contact with my mother's side. I have uncles and aunts, but they don't live close by, and my maternal grandparents died before Mom did. Even though I get along well with my 2 other uncles on my dad's side, my aunt has always been like a second mother to me, especially since my mother passed away. It was implied that my stepsister would have to begin paying rent when she reached 18, and my stepmother was aware that I was doing so. I don't know though, if she was aware that Dad didn't own the house or how much Grandpa had contributed financially. Monday's update. I called Dad the day following my post to let him know that I had made the decision not to move back. I just explained that I was comfortable where I was and that going back would feel like a step backward, without mentioning anything I had been taught. However, I did mention that I wanted to stay in contact and that they were welcome to have me over for dinner at any time. I also mentioned how much I wanted my stepsister and stepbrother to visit me at home. Dad didn't seem angry, but he did sound disappointed. He concluded by saying, "We'll see," and went on. Although I was also a little let down, he called me on Friday to ask if I would like to join them for lunch on Sunday. We decided to have dinner on Thursday as I indicated that I already had plans with Grandpa and Grandma. Despite the fact that we communicate and chat frequently, I haven't yet told my stepsister about any of this. Although she hasn't heard her parents talking about me, she did say that her maternal grandmother, who is staying over to help with the baby, is incredibly annoying. That made me giggle. I'll try speaking with Dad on Thursday because I didn't want to raise Cassie's expectations only to have him reject my offer of a sleepover. My most significant news is that I recently returned from a visit with Grandpa and Grandma. I told them I wanted to know everything that was happening, but we also had a great day together. I felt as though I had been living in a world of deception, and I was no longer a child. There were a few extra specifics, but the key points were the same as what my cousin and aunt told me last week. Due to Dad's limited savings, Grandpa has been covering many of our essential expenses, such as school, medical care, etc. Grandpa also informed me that prior to her death, he and Mom made the majority of the contributions to my college fund. I feel a little foolish for not recognizing it sooner, but I suppose it makes sense. In order for my stepsister to feel included and have the same possibilities as the rest of her siblings, Grandpa has also established money for them. This man is amazing. I realize how fortunate I am to have him, and I adore him so much. Numerous others have made helpful rather than critical remarks, emphasizing how fortunate I am to have grandparents and other family members who can support me. I'm really appreciative and hope to help others the way they help me in the future. I also shared my concerns about Dad's financial status with Grandpa. He reassured me that Dad would be all right, he would simply need to practice more frugal spending for a bit. Grandpa vowed to never let any of his children or grandchildren to endure hardship or lack basic necessities. He's attempting to teach Dad a lesson that he probably ought to have learned long ago, as many of you have already noted. I have therefore made the decision to keep my distance and not tell Dad that I'm an expert. I think it's best if he keeps believing I'm in the dark, even if several of you suggested that I approach him. Finally, we discussed the reasons behind Dad's expulsion of me. I could see that Dad's actions had hurt both Grandpa and Grandma, but Grandpa also had no response. He claimed that he approached his father for an explanation but received none. I'll continue to make an effort to connect with my siblings outside of my father and stepmother for the time being. Additionally, I'll attempt to schedule weekly dinners with them. Even though I'm aware that most of what you have all stated about my father is accurate, I still want to make an effort to keep in touch with him, if not for his benefit then at least for the benefit of my siblings and me. Don't worry though, I won't allow him to harm me once more. Update from dinner. Last Thursday. A few individuals messaged me to inquire on the dinner's success, but there isn't much else to say. I went there after work on Thursday, and my goodness, I missed my siblings terribly. I stayed with them most of the time. My baby sister is so adorable that I could eat her up, and my baby brother has grown up a lot. No matter what, I never want to be separated from them again. The only person I maintained in frequent communication with via phone calls and texts was my stepsister, Cassie. I unintentionally included her name in my initial post. She is a wonderful lady, and while she is aware that I didn't leave amicably, she is unaware of all the specifics or financial information. She was overjoyed when I asked whether she would want to spend some time at my place for an overnight. She would have started packing right then and there if I hadn't intervened. Guess where my stepmother's mother is staying while she's still there assisting with the baby? In my former room. The baby's room has been converted into a guest room, and because it's closer to the master bedroom, it's now my stepmother's former office. It was a little painful. Her mother continued to monitor me, even though I've only met my stepmother's parents a few times and they've always been kind to me. She was continually watching me, as if she thought I might take anything, regardless of where I went or what I did. She refused to leave my side while I held the infant. In any case, supper went as smoothly as you can imagine except from that. I was happy to see my siblings and play with them for a few hours, even though it was a little weird. I told Cassie at the end of the night that we should have a sleepover that weekend. Absolutely not, her grandmother said right away, but I was surprised when my stepmother intervened. She said I could pick Cassie up for dinner on Saturday after soccer practice if she wanted to. My stepmother gave me a very sincere hug as I was leaving. We've always had a decent relationship. As I stated in my first post, but I kind of came to believe that she's just a bad stepmother because so many people have said it. I felt really emotional and bewildered when I left. In the afternoon of Saturday, I picked Cassie up. She compared shawarma to a pork burrito when we first tasted it after watching Inside Out. There isn't much of a difference. Spending the day with her was wonderful, and I'm thankful that she's in my life. After dropping her off on Sunday, I walked inside to visit my other siblings. Dad was out meeting a friend from work, so he wasn't there. In case you were wondering, my stepmother used to work for an advertising firm but is now a stay-at-home mother, and my dad is a lawyer. On Friday, we have another supper planned. I don't want to bring it up right now, but I'm not sure why Dad wanted me to move out or why he charged me rent. I would prefer not to take the chance of destroying my bond with my siblings. Since things are finally settling down to regular living, I'm not sure whether there will be any more updates. Second update, things have been quite routine since my last update. The Friday before last, my dad and I had another meal. I chose to ignore stepmom's mother, who I'll call Evie, for evil, even though she was still giving me the evil eye. I was considering taking my younger brother to the park yesterday, and I had planned another supper for last Friday. Dad needed to talk to the entire family, so he called on Wednesday to ask if I could reschedule and go to Grandpa's on Saturday instead. In the interim, Cassie has informed me that my stepmother, I'll refer to her as Shay, and Evie have been having a lot of arguments. Shay's father, who I'll call Libby, short for lying bastard, arrived last Sunday. On Monday, Libby and Evie returned home after what seemed to be a major altercation. I went to Grandpa's yesterday afternoon, and my aunt was there as well. Dad and Shay showed up shortly after with Cassie. Dad apologized to my grandparents and to me, obviously humiliated. Additionally, Shay expressed regret to me and Dad explained the events of the previous few years. Cassie was there for the entire chat, but she didn't know all of it, while I did. Though it may be a little disorganized, I will attempt to explain everything here. Grandpa and a friend founded a business years ago, and it was a huge success. Grandpa sold the business and made a substantial profit when Dad turned 25. He made the decision to give a home to each of his children. With the understanding that they would use it to pay off debts or purchase homes, he gave each of his children $350,000. Grandpa didn't want his children to experience homelessness since he had witnessed it happen to others. But instead of purchasing a house, Dad relocated to New York to establish his own legal firm and grow into a well-known and prosperous attorney. However, things didn't work out so well for him, as you may expect. When he ran out of money and was unable to pay his rent half a decade later, he turned to Grandpa and returned home. Grandpa assisted him in finding employment with a friend. After some time, Dad began to rebuild his life, moved out of Grandpa's house, rented a house, met my mother, and started dating her. After a while, he proposed to her after they fell in love. Grandpa came to them and promised to give them a house before they were married. His other children had already heard about this and approved of it. The house would remain in Grandpa's name and eventually go straight to Dad's children in Grandpa's will though, because he didn't completely trust Dad and he wanted to make sure Dad's future children would always have somewhere to live. I was therefore wrong in the past. Only my dad and two of my cousins reside in the houses that Grandpa owns. My uncles and aunts do not. After that, I was born, and for a while, everything was fine until my mother died. When Dad found it difficult to care for me by himself, Grandpa began to provide financial support. After a few more years, Dad got to know Shay. However, Dad never mentioned any of this to her since he felt ashamed about not owning the house and Grandpa's financial help. Dad was only a mediocrely accomplished lawyer in her eyes. She asked if she could become a full-time stay-at-home mother after they were married and she fell pregnant. Too ashamed to refuse, Dad assured her it was all right. Dad was having even more trouble now that he had 3 children and a stay-at-home wife. Dad's savings were running low, but Grandpa was still assisting. In order for Grandpa to continue helping for the benefit of the children, Dad acknowledged that he partially blamed Shay on Grandpa, suggesting that she was to blame for his financial difficulties. Let's now discuss Shay's parents, Leigh and Evie. They started telling Dad that I was being spoiled, that I would handle money carelessly, and that I had an easy life because they thought he was a successful and affluent lawyer. Leigh would tell Dad stories about how, at my age, he had to pay his father rent and how he did the same with Shay's brother, who pulled himself up by his bootstraps and became successful and independent. It seems that Dad was affected by that attitude. He started to worry that rather than succeeding on my own, I would become reliant on him or, more likely, Grandpa and his wealth. Even though Grandpa had successfully raised 3 of his own 4 children, he began seeking parenting counsel from his in-laws instead of Grandpa because he was afraid I would become like him and want his dad's financial assistance. He told me that he felt humiliated, which seemed to influence a lot of his choices, when I questioned why he didn't speak with Grandpa first. In reality, Leigh came up with the rent notion. According to Dad, his first intention was to save the money and then return it to me. However, Shay was unable to save the money since she had a new child, was unemployed, and had to maintain appearances for her family. Additionally, he misled me at the time by claiming that Grandpa had done it with his children and that it was common for parents to collect rent, a claim I only learned to be untrue 8 months afterward. That fact, however, seemed insignificant at the time given everything else that transpired. I didn't reveal something in my earlier posts because, at the time, I didn't believe it was important. I belong to the LGBTQIA+ group. I've been honest about this, and before my mother died, I told her about it. I don't market it, but this will be important in the future. Anyway, to continue, Leigh starts to confide in Dad. Among other things, Leigh starts recommending that I move out, and Dad starts talking to him about his financial difficulties. Dad initially dismisses the notion. Then Dad begins to worry when Shay gets pregnant again. At that point, Leigh and Evie approach Dad and offer to assist him out, not just by providing financial support but also by having Evie move in with them once the baby is born. Since Evie would be present to assist with the children, Evie even offers to persuade Shay to return to work. However, they stated that I would have to move out in order for this to occur. They said that it was time for me to leave the nest, that the house couldn't hold Evie, and so on. Eventually, they persuaded Dad that my moving out would benefit everyone. Dad didn't share any of this with Shay. He just said that he believed it was best for me and that it looked like a wonderful opportunity given the impending baby. At first, Shay was opposed to it, but she gave in to Dad after he played the I know what's best card. I have to move out, they said. In a recent piece, I explained events from my perspective. Grandpa went to Dad's house that day, and they got into a heated argument, not just between Dad and Grandpa but also between Dad and Shay. At that point, Shay learned that Dad was reliant on Grandpa, had virtually little funds, and did not own the house. At this point, Dad's agreement with her parents remained a secret. After that day, I asked Shay why she was acting so rudely toward me, making me feel uncomfortable and wanting to leave. After looking astonished, she apologized and began to cry, stating that she was upset with Dad and never with me. She was unaware that she was somewhat to blame for my departure. I told her it wasn't her fault and I was crying too. Gentlemen, I believe her, even though I know a lot of you have said negative things about her. And I don't blame you. You can't fake the expression on her face when I informed her I didn't feel welcome. She was merely attempting to give me space, but I'm beginning to believe that she is just as much of a victim of Dad's behavior as I am. To recap the facts, once I moved out, Grandpa stopped providing Dad with financial help and began charging him rent for the house. The one expense he kept covering was Cassie's schooling. Now that everything is public knowledge, Dad and Shay have had to reduce their spending, which includes selling her car and giving up nice meals and snacks. They received some financial assistance from Leigh and Evie, but Shay was already under a lot of stress and was pregnant. It was evident to me that Grandpa shared my real sympathy for her and her ordeal. He probably had no idea how much anguish he was causing her. I don't know how he will handle the house with Dad. Evie moved home with Dad and Shay prior to the baby's birth. Things appeared to get back to normal after Shay gave birth, but with the new baby, Dad began to feel even more bad about what had happened. He contacted me again at that point, as I had informed you. Let's fast forward to my first dinner with them. After I left, Dad and Shay observed that Evie was acting suspiciously. Although they talked about it, nothing came of it. After Shay continued to talk to Dad about her mother, Dad began to share with her the things he discussed with Evie and Lay, including money, raising children, and other subjects. Shay approached her mother after my second dinner, and they got into a heated argument. Evie apparently yelled something like, "I can't believe you're letting that slur back into your home after getting rid of her," during the dispute. It was at that point that Dad finally understood and recognized what a fool he had been. Evie was expelled. They got into another argument when Lay arrived to pick her up. In reality, Dad wanted to pretend nothing had occurred, keep me around, and discreetly mend our relationship, but Shay stood her ground. She demanded that he tell Cassie and the rest of the world about everything, not just to me. Thus we reached the current time. Everyone was crying, including Dad, my aunt, Grandpa, Shay and Cassie. Grandma simply held me close without saying a word. Dad said there would be no more deceit, no more falsehoods. After Dad and Shay left, I stayed at Grandpa's because I wasn't well enough to drive. I got home this morning, took a long shower and sobbed a lot. Now, I'm composing this to see if it helps me sift through my feelings and make sense of everything. That must be the end of the tale. Right now, I'm not sure what I'm going to do. I feel sorry for Shay and Cassie, sad and enraged. I experience both everything and nothing. Tomorrow, I'll give my therapist a call to see if I can schedule further appointments. Although I've been going every Friday, I doubt I'll be able to wait a full week. Having said that, I guess the person who wagered on evil step-grandmother has won. After my fiancé's shocking comment about my late wife at family dinner, I'm questioning our engagement to protect my kids. For background, I am 43M and had 2 children, Sam, 21M, and Liz, 16F, with my late wife Kayla. Our children were 10 and 15 when Kayla died. I won't go into details, but she was hit by an intoxicated driver on her way home from work. She was the true love of my life, and our family was devastated by her departure. For the benefit of my children, I made a self-promise to wait at least a few years before dating again. I met Amanda, who is now my fiancée, 3 years after Kayla's death. We took our time, and it wasn't until we had been dating for a year or so that I introduced her to my children. We are now engaged after 3 years of dating. Although they are not particularly close, Amanda and my children get along well and show each other respect. Amanda has never gone too far or attempted to take their mother's place. When we first started dating, Amanda was a little insecure about my being a widower. She frequently asked me if I would still be with Kayla if she hadn't died during those initial months. She finally stopped bringing up the what-ifs when I reminded her that I didn't like to think about them and kept my responses succinct. Let's get to the problem. Recently, my parents celebrated our engagement with a family supper. My parents, my late wife's sister and her husband, my 2 children, Amanda and I were all present. With everyone engaging in small talk and talking about their wedding plans, the dinner was going well. About halfway through, my mother commented on how pleased she was that, like Kayla, I had discovered a fresh spark with someone else. Until Amanda chuckled and remarked, "I'm glad she died, otherwise I would have never gotten him to myself." I don't think anyone gave much thought to the sincere remark. The dinner's atmosphere instantly changed. Everyone, especially my children, grew tense. As though it were a joke, Amanda appeared to notice the abrupt change and made an embarrassing attempt to laugh it off. Since that was the first time she had ever said something like that, I was really completely frozen. Liz stood up and walked out to the car while my children stared in horror. I was still in shock, but Sam lingered a little longer, as though he was waiting for me to speak. In other words, the supper was essentially spoiled. We all headed home after I hastily bid farewell to everyone and gathered Amanda. 3 days have passed since my daughter last spoke to Amanda or me. I asked my kid what he felt I should do because I was getting sick of the silence. As an adult, I don't care who another adult marries, but I don't want a woman who talks like that about our mother around my sister, he told me. His remark lingered with me, and I'm now thinking about ending the engagement. Although she has never said anything like this before, I'm concerned that if I ignore it this once, it will happen more often and have an impact on my daughter. I just want to do what's good for my kids, therefore I need some outside input. What if her remark caused me to call off our engagement? Edit. Whoa, after posting this, I never thought I'd receive that much advice so fast. I appreciate all of your comments, including those who referred to me as a bad father. I believe that what you said helped me get my head out of the sand. Before talking to my fiancé tonight, I'll attempt to have a private conversation with my kids. We'll see where it goes from there. However, I believe that my fiancé and I are no longer together. I'll provide an update on the progress of the conversations with everyone later tonight or tomorrow. Again, I want to thank you all for helping me to straighten out. Edit 2. I attempted to amend this post, but it was not accepted. First update. During the dinner party, did my fiancée apologize to anyone? No, she didn't. To be honest, I don't think she even realized, or has realized, that what she said was incorrect. 2. Is social anxiety a problem for my fiancée? I'm not aware of it. She has never displayed symptoms of social anxiety in the time I've known her, and she has no past history of the condition. 3. What was my late wife's age? We were the same age as Kayla, who was 37 when she went away. Amanda is 41 years old now. Many people wanted to know when Amanda and I first met, as well as the timing of Kayla's death. I met Amanda around 3 years after Kayla's death, and she has now been gone for about 6 years. I didn't initially bring up their ages since I didn't think it was important, but I can see why others might be interested. Here's the complete update now that I've answered the most common queries I received. The day after I spoke with my children, I am writing this update. Since my fiancée works evenings most days of the week, she departed for work at approximately 5:30 last night. I called my son and asked if he could come over and chat with his sister and me. He lives in an apartment close to his school and attends a nearby college. He chose to live a few blocks from campus when he started college because he wanted to move out yet still be near us. I called him and his sister into the living room to speak when he got there. After they were both seated, I bluntly informed them that I no longer believed the wedding was going to take place and that Amanda's remark was inappropriate. I apologized to them, as I was advised to do here. I apologized to them for allowing the stress to rise in our home and for not dealing with it sooner. I told my daughter that I understood why she hadn't contacted me and that I was sorry for letting her believe that I approved of anything Amanda said. After we got back from that dinner, I felt quite cowardly and wanted to do everything in my power to mend my relationship with my children. My daughter told me throughout the conversation that she was outraged by Amanda's remark, and I was much more offended when I didn't instantly stand up for her mother. She went on to say that for the 2 years she has known Amanda, she has sensed that she has been attempting to gradually distance herself and Sam from me. Liz used the time my son moved out to begin his sophomore year of college as an example. Amanda was the one who jumped at the chance to move out when he brought it up. Liz claims that the person who encouraged Sam to move out the most was Amanda. To be clear, I never opposed Sam leaving home, but I did let him know that he was free to stay at home while he was in college and even after that until he found a place that suited him. I questioned Sam about if he moved out because he felt pushed out by Amanda. He claimed that before telling everyone he intended to move, he hadn't felt pressured, but after he made the announcement, my fiancée persisted in pressuring him to do so. Every time she mentions college, Amanda keeps pushing her to go out of state, Liz interrupted. Liz has made it clear that she wants to attend the institution Sam is now enrolled in and has no plans to go out of state. According to Liz, Amanda seems to be waiting for her to graduate from high school and enroll in college so that she may move out as well. Many of the comments were correct when they said that Amanda's subtle remarks eventually led to her attempting to drive my children away from me. Liz expressed her concern that too much damage would have been done between us by the time I finally realized how Amanda was acting. I apologized to my children for the delay in my realization and for making them walk on eggshells for so long. I gave them a hug and told them that they are my first concern, not Amanda or anybody else. I made sure to let Sam know that I will always be there for him and his sister, even when they are far into adulthood, because several comments mentioned that my kid still needs his father even though he is grown. About 2 hours passed during the entire chat. It was emotional for all of us, and we covered a lot of terrain. To put it briefly, Amanda and I are finished. I've made it a point to explain to my children that Amanda, as an adult, is accountable for her words and that none of this is their responsibility. Right now, my kids and I are getting along okay, but they haven't completely returned to trusting me, and it's likely that they won't for some time. That's perfectly acceptable to me. All I want is for my children to feel at home. I intend to speak with Amanda tomorrow as she has the day off from work. In addition, I want to give my mom a call to find out why she felt it was acceptable to bring up Kayla at the dinner. My kid is staying with Sam tonight and tomorrow night because I don't want her here when everything goes wrong. I'm not happy with how things turned out with Amanda, but I'd rather have happy, healthy children than a wife again. That's where I am at the moment. I appreciate all of the guidance and even the harsh words, everyone. After I cancel with Amanda, I'll provide another update. Second update. Alright everyone, the long-awaited update is finally here. My kids and I had spoken, made amends, and my daughter was staying with her brother to be clear of the drama surrounding my now ex-fiancé when we last spoke. I called my mom to inform her of the issue before facing the worst portion of the day, breaking it up with Amanda. Many of the comments advised me not to be critical of my mother's remark. After giving it some thought, I understood that my mother's remark about Amanda was meant as a compliment, which was verified when we spoke on the phone. Bless her heart, my mother felt terrible about the whole thing and thought it was all because of her one remark. I reassured her that she had never been held responsible for any of this and that she was not at all to blame for the circumstances. Before I let her go, we continued our conversation. At approximately 9:15 a.m., the call ended, and I was left to wait for Amanda to awaken. I waited until approximately 11:10 a.m. to seat her down for a conversation because I didn't want to surprise her by waking her up at 10:30 a.m. I had my phone set to record in my back pocket because many commenters suggested surreptitiously recording the chat, which I thought was a good idea. Although I didn't anticipate her trying anything extreme, it's better to be careful than sorry. The conversation went about as well as you might think, that is, not at all. We sat in the living room after I assured her that we had to talk and that it was serious. As we sat down, I started talking about the remark she made about Kayla at my parents' house. How it affected my kids, how it made me feel, and why she didn't apologize or acknowledge it. I informed her that I expected her to apologize to my in-laws, parents, and, above all, my children. Amanda didn't show much emotion during my entire conversation, with the exception of her eyes being a little wider than usual. She asked me directly after I was done, "So if I apologize to everyone, will we go back to normal?" I bluntly told her, no. I clarified that there were other problems besides the remark she made at dinner. She was trying to do the same with Liz, I informed her, and I knew she had put a lot of pressure on Sam to move out when he wasn't even sure about it. Despite my best efforts to keep my children out of it, I told her that the primary reason I no longer saw a future with her was the way my children described how she treated them. Amanda remained mute until I informed her that we were finished. Panic seemed to start at that point. She insisted repeatedly that she would make amends with my children and apologize to everyone. I told her that we were done even though I would appreciate any apology. By this time, she was crying uncontrollably and asked why I wasn't willing to try to mend our relationship. I told her that although I still loved her, I couldn't risk my children suffering the same kind of harm again. I became irate and questioned her about why she was forcing my children to leave their own house. I was really caught off guard by her reaction, but many commenters were right on the money about who she really is. "Well," said Amanda, "I had no idea you expected me to spend the rest of my life housing someone else's children." I became enraged. I told her to go after a minute or so. I made it plain that my children could travel anywhere they wanted to, especially in a home that I paid for and owned. After attempting to argue, she packed her luggage and went to stay with a friend. As a precaution, I sent myself a copy of the phone recording via email. I have everything I need to keep my name clear, even though the talk was only around 25 minutes long, not quite as long as the conversation with my kids. I've contacted my kids to let them know that Amanda is permanently gone, to let them know that they may return home at any moment, and to let my son know that he can move back in fully if he wants to. I still have to call my parents and in-laws to apologize for this chaotic scenario, and my daughter is returning from her brother's house in the afternoon. Even when Amanda is not at my house, she keeps calling and urging us to attempt to resolve the issue. She is not welcome to live here again, but I will allow her to visit in the coming days so she may get the other items. To tell the truth, I am a little devastated. I still adore Amanda in spite of everything she did, and I doubt I will for some time to come. But I'll be alright. I just want to utilize this as a chance to strengthen my relationship with my children and concentrate on the family that needs me right now. I want to thank everyone again for your assistance in the comments. Making amends with my family was made possible in large part by the guidance you provided. Update 3. To be honest, everything that happened seems like it happened ages ago, which makes me realize how old I am. I'm 44 now, heh. Sam will turn 22 soon, and Liz turned 17 a few months ago. Since I ended my relationship with Amanda, my life has actually been rather calm. I'll briefly review my most recent update, which was posted nearly a year ago. Amanda spent almost a week at her friend's house after our conversation. I used that time to pack up her clothes and other little belongings, as suggested by the comments. I made sure that the only things she needed to come into the house for were the larger items, like chairs and decor. As numerous commenters advised, I also had the locks replaced. I appreciate that you all considered items like the locks that I had not even considered. After that, I was surprised to find that everything proceeded really swiftly and pleasantly. She stopped by, gathered her belongings, and gave me the ring even though I didn't want it back. It was quiet and we didn't talk much, but that didn't last. She began stalking me on social media a few weeks later in an attempt to get another shot. Her antics had worn me out by that point, so I blocked her, and my children followed suit. Many critics were right when they said that I didn't truly love her, but rather who I believed she was. It greatly eased the transition. It's been over a year since my kids and I blocked her, and she hasn't spoken since, so I'm sure it will continue to be that way. I've come to the realization that I'm completely content to remain alone for the rest of my life as a result of this entire circumstance. That may be depressing to others, but it's more about acceptance to me. My decision to break up with Amanda helped me realize that I didn't love her as much as I loved Kayla, and I doubt I ever will. Neither I nor anyone I might date would be treated fairly by it. With my family by my side, I'm happy. I now have a greater respect for my children as a result of this event. My love for them has grown even more as a result of their maturity and understanding, something I never thought possible at their age. Heh. Sam's flat is still there. He denied my offer to move back in because he truly appreciates having his own bachelor pad, which I can understand because I was in his position once. Since the second semester of this year, he has been doing a part-time job that he truly enjoys. Although I'm not positive, I feel that he might have met someone because I know my child. Liz is enjoying the summer before her final year and is fantastic as always. I'm quite pleased of her because she made the honor roll every year of high school, including this year. When I consider how hardworking and genuinely excellent both of my children are, I find it difficult to keep from boasting. I'm sorry for talking endlessly about them in this post, but I adore them and can't stop talking about them. Other fathers can probably identify. Hey. I want to express my gratitude once more to everyone who has been following my story and giving me all of your wonderful, and not so great, advice. Additionally, be aware that I have read your own accounts of such occurrences in the comments. I apologize that many of you lack the network of support that I have been able to provide for my children. I wish I could give all of you gigantic dad hugs for taking the time to share your own tales. I truly appreciate it. I took a DNA test and discovered I'm 23% related to my husband. Our marriage is now shaken by an unexpected family connection. Original post. Hey everyone, I've known my whole life that I'm a donor. I grew up in New South Wales, and my parents were always open about it, so it was never some big secret. I didn't think much about it beyond that, though, until a couple of years ago when my husband and I decided to take an ancestry DNA test. We thought it'd be fun, maybe I'd find some half-siblings, and he'd learn a bit more about his side of the family. Well, we got the results, and I matched with him. My husband. As a half-sibling. At first I thought it had to be some kind of mistake, or maybe I misunderstood something. But no, after looking into it, we realized his dad was also a donor, and no one ever told him. Now, here we are, married for years with 2 kids, and we're still trying to figure out how to process the fact that we're siblings. I don't even know how to explain how I feel. It's just overwhelming. I love him, of course, but this changes so much. We've already spoken to a genetic counselor, and we're trying to move forward, but it's like everything we thought we knew about our family has been flipped upside down. I just feel kind of lost. Has anyone else here gone through something like this? I'd really appreciate hearing from anyone who has dealt with something similar. Or even just your thoughts. Edit. This blew up much bigger than I intended. I'm going to speak to my husband about family therapy again and sit on this information. We have no interest in going public at this point. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. I think you need some family counseling. First between you and your husband, and then later down the road when you inevitably tell your children. I'm not sure if you're able to take leave from work, but it would be a good idea to look into that because this is absolutely something you need to process without work distraction. OOP. I'm in therapy myself, but unfortunately my husband is not open to that right now. He's in a big denial phase and does not wish to talk about it. Commenter 2. I'm so sorry. This was bound to happen somewhere in the world, at some point, given the current unregulated fertility industry that puts profits above the rights and interests of the donor-conceived child. If you're up to it and think it would help, I have a few pieces of media to recommend. The Man with 1,000 Kids, a documentary on Netflix. Laura Hai, a content creator and advocate for DCP on TikTok, Instagram. Multiple books have helped me, such as Inheritance by Dani Shapiro, Uprooted, and The Lost Family. I have not come across this particular scenario where children were conceived by accidental incest between DCP, but a lot of people have other traumas related to the industry and have explored that. I also understand if you don't want to research the situation. I didn't when I first learned I was DCP by surprise. Talking to someone is important though. You will be okay. Your kids will be okay. It's super weird and icky that this happened, but it's not your fault. I've actually seen most of that media and read a couple books from Australian DCP. I'm lucky to have been told early that I was a donor conceived. It was never a huge factor in my life until now. Update: thank you so much for all of the responses, support, and advice. I've taken some time to process, and I wanted to provide an update on where we're at. First, I have been in individual therapy and working through everything. It's been incredibly helpful to have a space to just unravel my thoughts. My husband has also told me that he's open to couples therapy, which is a big step for us, and I'm hopeful it will help us navigate this together. To confirm some things, yes, my father-in-law is the donor, which makes him not only my husband's father but also mine. It was a lot to take in. We're both really angry that my husband's dad never told him the truth, and at the moment neither of us are talking to him. It's just too much. We've also discovered about 40 other siblings so far, all of whom live nearby. That was another layer of this experience we weren't prepared for. We haven't met them all yet, but knowing they're out there brings its own set of challenges and questions. As for our marriage, no, we're not divorcing. We love each other and are committed to working through this, but we haven't told our children yet. We plan to get professional advice before we do. This isn't something we want to rush into without understanding the best way to approach it for their sake. I know many of you are part of the donor-conceived community, and I just want to say that while I'm very aware and involved in spaces like We Are Donor Conceived, and I follow creators like Laura High, Donor Dylan, The Queer Mama, Rachel, strangers like Medici, Sunny, Evie Lucas, etc., I'm not interested in speaking to anyone publicly about our situation. I'm really proud of people like Victoria Hill for going public, but that's not what's best for my family right now. Thanks again for listening, for the advice, and for your understanding. We're taking this one day at a time. Comments. Commenter. So very impressed with you both. This must be such hard work and my heart goes out to you. As a donor, this is my greatest fear. I was not anonymous by choice. Back in the day the fertility clinics capitalized on our naivety. Am I the asshole for snapping at my jealous sister during her engagement party, telling her she'll choke on her jealousy one day? Original post. Hi, I'll try to keep it as short as I can. I promise I'll clarify things if there are confusions and sorry about them in advance. I'm 21F and I have 2 siblings. My sister is 24 and engaged. My brother is 28 and married to my sister-in-law who is 25. My parents hosted a family luncheon to celebrate my sister's engagement at their house. I went early to help them set up, my brother and sister-in-law a little bit later than everyone else. My sister and her fiancé arrived last. Everything was going well and everyone was happy until my sister got a text and pulled me aside. She asked me if I could go outside and meet a friend of hers who's going to drop something off for her. I did. The something was a big ball of pure happiness, a Saint Bernard dog with a cute little formal tie around his neck. As adorable as he was, I couldn't bring him in because my sister-in-law is allergic. Her allergy is not severe but still. Everyone in the family knows of it. I told the friend to please wait while I talked to my sister, she did not. I texted my sister that I can't bring him inside. She texted that it was fine, to bring it in because it's a surprise and he's the newest addition to the family. I insisted that I couldn't, then I texted my brother about it because it had been 10 minutes. I'm standing in the driveway with a big doggy that would not stop licking my legs, not knowing what to do. From what I was told inside, my brother pulled my sister aside and asked her not to bring the dog in. That she knows his wife is allergic. She refused, saying that it's an open space, that sister-in-law will be fine. He then told her the news that sister-in-law is pregnant. I already knew and they were waiting until she passed her first trimester. My sister then went outside, dragged the dog and then me in when I resisted. My brother, seeing this, excused himself and left with sister-in-law. We tried resuming the lunch after that but it was awkward at best. When my sister and her fiancé cut the cake, she grabbed her glass of champagne to make a toast. The toast was her rambling about how selfish my brother and his wife were, that they couldn't let her have one day to herself and had to ruin and overshadow it. That they were not the first or last couple to get pregnant. Both of my parents tried to shush her but she was on a roll and went on to call sister-in-law an attention seeker that just had to give the family the first grandchild. I finally had enough and told her that green isn't a good look on her and that she was going to choke on her jealousy one day. Then I got up and left. She called me a bitch on my way out. My mom called me after and told me that it was a bit harsh even if she was harsher. She also suggested that the 3 of us, siblings, talk it out after things settle a bit. My dad is staying neutral. I haven't heard from relatives that were at the luncheon. AITA. Some of OOP's comments. Commenter. Question. Did your sister also know about the pregnancy, like you did? and pulled the dog stunt to make sure they left instead of making a public announcement, like she would have had the roles been reversed. OOP. My sister had no idea about the pregnancy. None of my family did. The only reason I know is because she got sick from the smell of chili cheese fries when we were having a girls' night in. We kind of just looked at each other, and a light bulb went off in our heads. It wasn't like my sister was purposely excluded or anything. And I can confidently say that my brother and sister-in-law would have never hijacked her day to announce their pregnancy. They were planning their own dinner next month to announce it. I assume that's done with, but maybe we can salvage it with a gender reveal if they're up for it. IDK OOP's mom. OOP's sister dragging her out of the house. My mom has always wanted us to talk our issues out because, at the end of the day, you're siblings. But yeah, that being said, I just want to clarify that even though she dragged me, it didn't take much since I have the smallest stature of my siblings, so she didn't use a lot of force. I did call my brother and sister-in-law right after I got home, and they were good for the most part. They're obviously pissed, but since the news is already out, there's not much that can be done about it. Commenter. She didn't even treat the poor puppy well. The last thing a new puppy needs to deal with is the chaos and overstimulation of a family party. And what did they do with the poor wee bugger while they were cutting the cake and making their pissy speeches? Just leave it outside. Inside to piddle in a corner, 'cause the first few weeks with my pups they piddled with gay abandon every few minutes. OP, I ended up keeping him company before the cake cutting thing went down, but yeah, he's not a puppy. If I were to guess, I would say he's maybe 2 years old? I volunteer at a shelter, but I'm definitely not a pro. Commenter, NTA, but I'm confused about who the dog was actually for. If the sister is engaged, that means she's gonna be leaving home, so is it her dog? If she got a dog for her parents, that's fucking weird to get a big dog for somebody as a surprise gift. Or did she just do it to divert the attention onto herself because she already knew the sister-in-law was pregnant? I'm so confused. OOP, the dog is hers and her fiancé. They both have their own place where the dog will be living, but she brought him to our parents' house to apparently introduce him to the family, Mom's words when I asked her about it. Commenter, introduce a full-grown Saint Bernard to the family with an allergic member. You can't get much more flying dog fur than that. Surely the introductions could have been made at a better time. Did your mother know she was going to do this? If so, not cool, Mom. OP, I don't think she knew since she and my dad seemed pretty surprised, and then she spent the end of the party looking inside and outside the house for droppings. So IDK commenter. What worries me is this person will see her plan pissed everyone off and she will blame the dog and take it to the pound. Or worse, set it free in a remote area. People like this woman are so wrapped up in their own world, they have zero self-awareness. OP, I didn't think of that TBH. Even though I don't think my sister would ever harm a defenseless animal, I'll keep tabs and make sure he's treated well. Commenter, info, when you say she is allergic, what do you mean? You say not severely so, not a life-threatening condition. But would she be miserable within seconds, or is it a little bit uncomfortable? Allergies have very wide ranges. Also, they don't affect a pregnancy at all. Unless it's life-threatening, of course. The baby won't notice a thing. OOP, I don't think it's within seconds, but she does start sneezing, gets a shortness of breath, and this is an example, I pet a dog and touch her face for whatever reason, her eyes get a bit swollen and puffy. Commenter, I have not read all the comments yet, but what was the fiancé's reaction? Surely he is having second thoughts about marrying your mess of a sister. OOP, he was just kind of standing there, looking awkward as hell, but he didn't seem shocked by her behavior and was standing by her. He even raised his glass. One more clarification. I just want to clarify that they didn't announce their pregnancy at my sister's engagement party. My brother told her and only her privately since she was saying no to him asking her not to bring the dog in. As far as I know, they have a cordial relationship, sister and sister-in-law, not overly friendly but also not standoffish. It could be that my sister-in-law's whims dictate every event. I'm at almost every family event, some I couldn't attend due to personal reasons, but the ones I have been to, nothing of the sort happened. I do get why it's seen as my brother and I against her, but I just feel like in this situation, he's justified. I will also be mentioning the deep clean to my parents. Thank you for bringing it to my attention. OOP is voted NTA Relationship Advice Post. Title, My 21F Sister, 24F, keeps jokingly asking me who I'm sleeping with and if I've taken my BC. Birth control. This is getting so weird, guys. I made a post on another sub about something that happened with my family at my sister's engagement party. Gist of it is my sister found out my SIL is pregnant and flipped about them, and me, ruining her day. Since then, has she and I sort of made up? I sent her a text apologizing for what I said and she accepted it, but we didn't have a proper conversation about any of it. Anyway, since my apology, she asked who I'm seeing at the moment, more importantly if it's a man or a woman, if it's men then how many. And if I'm being careful with my BC, I was confused and mildly offended at her acting like I'm the whore of Babylon when she knows the only guy I've had sex with is my long-term ex-boyfriend, but whatever. I told her that I just started seeing a woman and that she's not getting a niece or nephew from me anytime soon, obviously, but it's a joke about my dad who used to warn both us and our older brother when we were younger after every family meeting that he won't have teen mothers or fathers under his roof. I thought it was her own weird way of checking up on my life even if she had never done it before, but she literally sends me a message about my BC every couple of days even though I told her I'm seeing a woman, not that the woman and I are having sex, but you get biology. I don't know how to approach this, like I have zero clue. Advice please? Some of OOP's comments. Commenter. I read the other post. I think she's worried that you'll end up pregnant before her wedding too. I mean, it came out at her engagement luncheon that your SIL is pregnant. So she already thinks your brother Sil is one-upping her. I think she's focused on who else is going to show her up at her wedding. I'm not saying she's right or even sane, but that's the feeling I get. OP, but the thing is that I'm nowhere near a place in my life where I'm even thinking of having a baby. No offense to people who have babies at 21, 22, but I'm not trying to do that. Yeah, accidents can happen, but I'm not sleeping around with men, and even if I was, I would be taking double precautions. Condoms BC. I think she's miffed that my brother is having the first grandbaby and wants to have the second. IDK, but I'm worried about her behavior, TBH, this isn't healthy or normal. Commenter. Hey sis, you keep asking me about this, like it's really important to you. What's going on? OOP, I mean, I will definitely ask her, but I don't want her to get defensive because she perceives me on my brother's side in all of this, which yes, I'm a little bit guilty of that. Update post, October 24th, 2024, 8 days later, 5 weeks from OG post. Hi guys. It's been around a month or so and TBH, I don't have that much of an update, but a lot of people have been asking me about the doggy and it's easier than telling people individually, so here it is. First things first, the update on my sibling situation. My brother and SIL have gone LC with my sister until they get a proper apology, which hasn't happened yet, but I think it will happen soon. My sister has been talking to my mom about wanting to be in our future nephew-niece's life, so there's that at least. Also, my SIL is officially out of her first trimester and she and the baby are healthy and thriving thankfully. She has been having a bit of a hard time when it comes to smells and pregnancy stuff, but I think that's to be expected. Don't come at me, just from what I've read. We've also been planning a gender reveal party for next month, so we're just focusing on the positive stuff for now. As for my sister and I did send her an apology for how harsh I was with her at the party and she accepted it and apologized for calling me a bitch, but it's been so damn weird when it comes to our dynamic, especially since she's suddenly all up in my business about who I'm sleeping with. But that's another issue. Now for the awaited update, Barkley. Turns out the big fluff ball has an adorable bark, one you wouldn't expect when seeing him, hence his name. As some of you predicted, my sister was not up for the massive job that is taking care of a Saint Bernard, and a week and a half after the party, she called and asked me to find him another home. I volunteer at a shelter and know a lot of people who would love to adopt. I honestly wanted to keep him myself because I've grown attached, but I live in an apartment and not only would it be impossible, it would also be cruel to keep him cooped up like that. Luckily, a friend of a friend has the space for him to be happy and safe and took him in with the promise of letting me see him whenever we're both free, and now I get random pics and videos of Barkley in his element all happy and bark fighting with the guy's next door neighbor's Yorkie. Don't worry, there's fences between them. So yeah, just wanted to say thank you guys for all the advice and opinions. I appreciate all of you. Some of OOP's comments. Commenter. I mean, I'm more worried about the other neighbors who have to listen to that, but it seems like things at least worked out for Barkley. OOP, I get your concern, but from what I've seen of the guy's neighborhood, went to check it out and meet him first, it's a lot of families and most of the kids have pets, cats, dogs and a parrot, guy's intel, so it seems like they're used to pet noises. Am I the asshole for ending my engagement after my fiancée kept her best friend in the dark about us? Original post, my now ex-fiancée, 30F, and me, M27, got engaged 3 weeks ago. We've been dating for 5 years and I finally got the money to give her the wedding she wanted. Well, 3 days ago we were discussing our guest list, and I asked if she wanted to invite her best friend. Let's call him James, M30. James lives in another state, but since they were friends for 10 years, I thought I could even pay for his travel expenses since it would be great to have her best friend at the wedding. She denied, saying that it would take a lot of work to bring him, and she wanted it to be a family event. Countless times she mentioned that James was like family to her, so I insisted. She got annoyed and said, I didn't even tell him we were engaged. That took me by surprise. I tried to ask why, but she started stonewalling me, and I left her alone. After a couple of hours, I tried to ask her again why she hadn't told him we were engaged, and she still refused to tell me. And I admit, my insecurity got the better of me. In the past, James had confessed he had feelings for her, which she turned down and basically friendzoned him. But by the way she told me, it always sounded like she had him as a backup, something not only me, but her exes realized. She married him online. They always made their WoW characters look like a couple, like wearing the same transmog and shit like that. When she had a fight with her exes, he was always there for her, and etc. I told her that made me uncomfortable, and if she was not planning to tell him, she might as well consider herself single, cause I would not marry someone who couldn't be honest. Yes, I was pretty immature, but she did something even more immature. She texted him while showing me her phone something like, hey, just so you know, I was engaged but not anymore, and sent it to him. I told her to pack her things and leave my house. Ever since she left, she has been calling me, but I refused to answer. My mom called me, because she apparently called my mom, and said that I was an asshole for ending things for such a ridiculous thing. So, AITA? Edit. Sorry for the typo in the title. Edit 2. Hey guys, I made some dinner and I think I'm gonna go with you/done over69 position. Cool username BTW. I'm gonna ask her to meet up and ask to see their messages. And to you Foxy Sly Old Stody Fox, I'm already in low contact with my mom, but I'm going to make my decisions after I clear everything up. So I'm kinda promising an update. Update. Hey guys, I just got home after talking to my, still, ex-fiancé, and since a lot of people asked for an update, here it is. But, I want to clarify a few things. As commented on my original post, I paid for the house since I bought it before dating her, and I asked her to move in, since it was close to her job. I work from home since I'm in tech, but she had to go to work, that's why I paid for her car, to help her commute, and honestly her salary is shit. I was her partner, so I didn't see any problem with that. I thought she was the one, despite everything. She is smart, funny, we had chemistry, but I felt betrayed. To the update. We met at a coffee shop on the premise we would discuss how to save our relationship, at least that's what she thought. As soon as we sat down, I asked to see their messages. She got defensive immediately and told me she had deleted everything. I asked to see her phone anyway. She started to cry, ugly cry, asking me to stop. At that point I had already decided I was not going to be part of the relationship anymore, but damn, I was curious. It took a good 20 minutes for her to hand me her phone, a lot of crying, even a waitress asking her if she was okay, so I read the messages. There wasn't any cheating like nudes being exchanged, them professing their love for each other, but what I read still stung. There was a lot of shit talking about me. A lot. Texts and texts of them saying how terrible of a person I was, criticizing my hobbies. I like video games and pro wrestling, saying I wasn't a real man because of them and stuff like that. But there were two topics that caught my eye. One where she had told him I was having trouble getting hard and that was frustrating for her. And one where she was complaining about how she didn't want to be stuck in our relationship. Yes, I was having problems in bed. Because I was sad because my father had passed away 6 months ago, and the stuck thing, I remember telling her that when we got married, if she wanted she could leave her job, and I would provide for both of us. I don't know if she took this the wrong way, but I guess it was related to that. I honestly don't know. By the time I gave her the phone back, she was already giving excuses on why she was saying those things to him. How he was like a therapist for her, and then she asked me, "Don't you complain about me to your friends?" And I simply replied, "No I don't." She started crying again. I took a pretty deep breath and just said, "Just give me the ring back." I didn't have the ring with me, like some suggested. She hesitated a bit, but gave it to me anyway. I stood up and asked her to delete my number and to not bother me anymore. I called her mom and asked her to pick up her daughter's stuff at my place. Her mom is a good person. I'm just realizing I'm going to miss her as I write this. She understood why I decided to end it, but she didn't ask much, and to be honest, I'm glad she didn't. As for my mom, I didn't call her. I just blocked her for things unrelated to this post. I just realized she never had my back in anything. I was always trying to save an already failed mom-son relationship. Before I leave, I just want to clarify. I was never against her having male friends, or any type of friends. People are going to cheat, friends or no friends. I remember my dad saying something to me when I was a teenager. He always said opportunity makes the thief, but I do not agree with that. Anyway, since I have the next 2 weeks off work, I'm going to figure out what to do with the wedding money, drink some booze, play games and watch Monday Night Raw later. Peace. P.S. Sorry for any typos, but I fixed the title now. Edit. A couple of people are asking about the car. Is a 2015 Nissan Versa which she crashed 2 times, both times she rear-ended someone. Never liked the car, weak engine, the interior feels cheap and overall bad, so for all I care she can keep that piece of shit. I would have more luck throwing it off a cliff than selling it. Edit 2, little update. Her mom called me a few hours ago to check on me and to ask when she could come and pick up X stuff. We spoke about the car and she basically forbade me to let her daughter keep the car because, 1, I paid for it. 2, X wouldn't be able to maintain it. So I'm going to keep the car until I'm able to sell it, God help me. Also, some people called the story fake, because they said I wasn't a real man for playing games and yet they played WoW. To be honest, that's on me, cause I wasn't very clear. The real man thing was more about the pro wrestling hobby than the gaming hobby, but in some messages they clearly mocked me for playing some games, Life is Strange series. In one I remember James saying something like, how could a grown-ass man play such a girly game and cry? Yes, I cried while playing Life is Strange. I also cried to RDR2, the cutscene still makes me emotional. I'm a crybaby I guess. Also I want to thank everyone who messaged me to talk about wrestling and games, it really helped me take my mind out of everything. I haven't replied to everyone, but I intend to. If anything happens, I'll let you guys know. Be good people. Update 2. Hey guys. It's been a couple of days since I used this account to tell my story and something happened, but this is a positive update. First I want to say thank you to everyone who reached out to my DMs and commented saying nice things, it felt really good and I appreciate y'all, some of you actually made me tear up with your kind messages. Second, I saw my 2 previous posts were in a YT video of a guy who reads Reddit posts and my update was on our best of Redditor updates, a subreddit I read a lot, and that caught me off guard. But I want to express my gratitude for everyone who gave me advice, told their own story or just told me I was a cool guy. Reading your messages before writing this felt amazing. I also want to say I thought about my engagement a lot, and I have no regrets whatsoever. Yeah, things ended badly and she was not a good person to me in the end, but I just don't hate her. Nor do I wish for her to fail. We had good moments, I felt happy with her and again I really thought she was the one. Feeling hatred was going to harm me more than her. To the update. Her mom came to pick up her stuff and we talked for hours, it felt like therapy. I cried on her shoulders, we laughed, she expressed how much I meant to her family, and that I would always be welcome in her home. It felt so good to hear her say those things to me. Before she left she asked me if I wanted to ask about my ex. I got curious and asked how she was doing. Her words were, she's trying to act stoic, but I know my daughter, she's not taking this well. I left it at that. She gave me a hug and left. About the car, I'm going to donate it and get a tax write-off. But the thing I'm excited about is that I'm going to the Royal Rumble. I never even watched Raw or SmackDown live, but now that I have the extra cash, I'm going to treat myself. Again, thank you all for reaching out. Sorry to the people who love drama that this update doesn't have an unwanted pregnancy, a fight, chaos or a plot twist. The truth is that my life is just really boring. Be kind people. I want a brand new hot tub. Is this a literal white elephant gift and upkeep nightmare? Should I keep or sell? Original post. Like the title says, I won the grand prize in a raffle. It's a beautiful 6-person hot tub, and I would love to own one someday. The thought of snowboarding all day and coming home to a hot tub soak sounds amazing. I do have a backyard that has room for it, but I would need to get electrical outlets added, would need to flatten the ground for a concrete pad, possibly get plumbing, then there's the delivery, accessories and upkeep. Are there any frugal hot tub owners out there? What is upkeep like? Do you really use it often enough to justify the cost? I'm not afraid to do the hard work necessary to install it, but wondering if in the long run am I wasting all this money to upkeep costs? My wife keeps suggesting that we sell it and use it for a trip. What do you think? Some of OOP's comments, relevant comments. Commenter. I installed a hot tub at my last house. If you are going to use it and enjoy it, it's never going to be cheap. Chemical and water costs aren't too bad, and in my opinion it's not that much of a hassle, but leaving the tub on 24/7 365 has considerable electricity costs, especially if you're in an area cold enough to snowboard. Our hot tub was costing us about $200 a month to run in the winter, and about $50 a month in the summer. And that's just water, electricity, and chemicals. That doesn't include repair and maintenance costs, which are low the first few years but get intense once the tub gets older. Personally, I want to be using it a few times a week to have it feel worthwhile. It was worth it for me at the time, but I don't think I'd make the choice now. I'd just go on an extra couple of Airbnb weekends at places with hot tubs. I've decided that outdoor saunas are much cheaper and easier to use and maintain. That's what I'll be looking at for my next home instead of a hot tub. OOP, all good advice, thank you. Commenter, they will have a cash value, but that doesn't mean they can take the cash instead. A lot of times companies donate them as a write-off and they get the benefit of marketing and exposure. You don't have the choice between the prize and cash. OOP, this is most likely the case with my prize. I think I'd have to sell it on the FB marketplace or something similar. Commenter, check first. Why would you assume this is most likely the case? And now that I'm so invested in this, let me know. OOP. It was a raffle at the birthday party at the company my wife works at. The hot tub place is next door and was donated to the raffle after the owner did a work for trade thing with their business. So knowing a little of the behind the scenes maneuvering, I'm fairly sure it's a write-off donation and there's no cash prize equivalent. But I'm still going to ask. Commenter, did you have to provide your SSN when you accepted it? That would be a red flag of getting taxed on it. OOP, I haven't accepted it yet. Someone reminds OOP they'd probably need a permit and/or inspections. Didn't even think about the permits and municipal inspection. Good points, thank you. Commenter, OMG, my dream, keep it. OP, it was my dream too. I went to the raffle specifically to try and win the hot tub, so now that my dream came true, I'm really trying to make the happy ending work. After all these comments, I'm leaning towards selling it. The power costs are definitely a factor where I am. It's already been 300 plus some months. Commenter, snowboarder with hot tub here. Do it, you'll never regret it. OOP, damn it, LOL, the choice is so hard. I may try and see if they will do a sauna instead. Bought a season pass to Brighton this year, gonna be up there a lot. Commenter, where are you located? I'm in the market for one if you're looking to sell and we happen to be not too far. Feel free to PM if you'd like. OOP, Utah. Update post. Thank you all for so many helpful comments. Like I said, I was super excited to own a hot tub. I thought I had the perfect spot for it and was ready to do everything I could to get it installed. All the commenters brought up a lot of great points that I didn't consider. One was the increase in energy bills. Our electricity has recently undergone a 30% hike and in the summer is over $300 a month now. Adding a hot tub in the winter would have added $100-$200 per month to that bill, as we live in a cold, snowy climate. 2 was the spot we picked out for it. After measuring where we thought it would go, we realized the spot wasn't big enough to fit the tub and we would have to put it somewhere that had a bit more room. This meant I would have had to run a longer electrical line, had to rip out part of an edged pathway and build a new gravel pad. The new spot had no privacy. It was in direct view of the neighbor's window, so adding some sort of privacy barrier would have been another cost. And it was still 20 feet from where we wanted it, which means in the winter I'd have to shovel a walkway to it and clear it all off. I know in the winter this is going to be a big factor in not using it, because it wouldn't be convenient to get to. There was the HOA, and resale of the home. A lot of people mentioned that hot tubs can be considered a liability to the home when selling, as well as issues with HOAs, permits, and inspections. That wasn't something we considered, and while we do plan on being in this home for a while, it's not our forever home. And 4 was the total cost and taxes. It will be reported to the IRS as a $10K prize, so I imagine I'd have to pay anywhere from $1,500 to $3,500 extra taxes next year, in addition to the $2K I would have had to spend on the electrician, adding a gravel pad, delivery fees, as well as the increase in water and power bills monthly. That could be something like $5,000 getting everything up and running and installed, and not something I anticipated spending before Christmas. So, here's what I did instead. I asked the owner of the hot tub place if I could convert the hot tub I want into a sauna instead, and he said yes. So I'm getting a super nice infrared indoor sauna that will sit inside my basement. It doesn't need expensive new power lines run, and no other associated upkeep costs going forward other than the power used. All in all, I'm super happy with the outcome. A tiny bit disappointed I don't get to soak in a hot tub, but I can still go snowboarding all day and come home to a nice heat soak. Thanks again, everyone. Some of OOP's comments. Commenter, that's a bloody clever solution. I love that you negotiated. Very few people realize that negotiation gets results. See, why Flora is about to recruit an entire office building to negotiate with the landlords about getting some much needed accessibility upgrades. I mean, I'm a mediator, so I would say this. But jolly good for you anyway. OOP. Thank you. Someone in the original thread mentioned a sauna and it got me thinking. I work with a lot of small businesses, so I'm used to negotiating and finding solutions. Commenter. And the post doesn't include the chemicals that are added to the water regularly. OOP. A lot of the original commenters said that those weren't too expensive, so I didn't include that, but definitely a factor as well. Commenter. Saunas are such a godsend and genuinely beneficial for your health. Brilliant move. And I know sauna rooms can be a nice incentive when selling OOP. Good to hear. We went with an infrared one because of the health benefits. I'm excited to try it out. My boyfriend's intense relationship with his childhood teddy bear is making me uncomfortable. Am I overreacting, or should I be worried? Original post. Okay now, please no joke, this is actually serious. Also, this is a throwaway account and I was an idiot when writing my name and typed throwaway instead of throwra. I have been with my boyfriend for 3 months now, so it's pretty new. So far everything is going well except this tiny little detail. He has this teddy bear, let's name him Teddy. Teddy has always been a part of my boyfriend's life. He got him for his birth and when at around the age of 5 or 6, or whatever age is the appropriate age to remove a teddy bear from a child, his parents tried taking Teddy away from him. He screamed and cried so loud without stopping they ended up giving up. So he kept Teddy with him his whole life. He mentioned Teddy to me pretty early, about a week after us being together. He showed me pictures of him and I found it cute at first. He had plenty of pictures of him in different situations, him with a mug, him laying in bed, him studying. I truly found it adorable since I thought it was just a joke really and didn't think that Teddy was such a big part of his life. The more we got to know each other the more he started mentioning him. He'd often make jokes about him. When he had to come back to his flat, he'd say, I have to come back, Teddy is waiting for me. And then later he'd text me, okay, I put Teddy to bed so now I might go to sleep as well, I don't want to wake him up. Again, a little weird but cute still. But he really started talking about him constantly, always linking what we were doing to him. Oh, I wish Teddy was with us to see that. Teddy doesn't really like people so I won't take him with me for this party, etc. He'd send me selfies with him at least twice a week. He also sometimes said weird stuff like whenever we watched a sex scene in a movie he'd say that's what me and Teddy do when we're alone. Or when I asked when he lost his virginity he answered, oh, I lost it with Teddy a few years ago. They were jokes that made me uncomfortable. He always seems to consider him as a baby, his son, his brother, so him being sexualized was extremely weird for me. I told him then that it was weird and he just laughed but I don't think he took me seriously. About a month ago I told him I was okay with him bringing Teddy when he was staying around my flat. I could see it was making him sad to leave him, and also was very curious to finally see him in person. I can't go to my boyfriend's flat, there are rules that are strict, he can't invite anyone. So that day I drove to his flat and he went with all his stuff and Teddy. When he got in the car he pulled him out from his bag and had him give me a kiss on the cheek. When we drove, he opened the window and put Teddy out of the car, a bit like a dog would. He said it was rare for Teddy to travel like that and he could feel that he was happy. Teddy smells a lot, my boyfriend hasn't washed him in 12 years. For the rest of the car drive, he hugged him and gave him kisses. He has a weird twitch, where he just compulsively pats the back of Teddy. It makes a weird sound because Teddy used to be able to play music when you pressed his belly. He always rubs Teddy's clothes in between his fingers. You can guess that Teddy is in a pretty bad state. He used to be red and now he's just gray. When we're together in bed, he always puts Teddy's mouth on my mouth and I always avoid it as I find it disgusting, and I told him that I hate it but he doesn't listen. He always tries to have Teddy touch my boobs or my arse. When we make love, I often end up finding him in between us and every time I throw him away my BF says oh no he likes to watch. In a joking way. He often mentions us having a threesome with Teddy, him, Teddy, being great at licking. And them always doing kinky stuff together. Now I'm not an idiot. I know communication is important. I tried talking to him so many times. Sometimes in a joking way too so he doesn't feel attacked. Like once, I asked who would he choose if he had to choose between me and Teddy, he said Teddy. But also so many times in a serious way, I told him I didn't like when he was rubbing Teddy on my face and body. I told him I found his relationship with him way too intense and weird. But every time he didn't take it seriously, made jokes, and never truly told me what he thought. I should mention that he is like that for any serious conversation. All he does is make awkward jokes and he never tells me how he feels. He said I love you first because he was drunk. This is becoming hard to handle. I have been away from him for 2 weeks and was kind of relieved I wouldn't see Teddy anymore, but all he did was send pictures. And whenever I asked him what are you doing, or what did you do today, his answer was playing with Teddy. Today he told me I was perfect, which was a first and I sure didn't expect that. He doesn't give a lot of compliments. When he said that I said really? And his reply was, actually no, Teddy is perfect, you come way after him. I just gave up and didn't reply. I have 3 questions. 1. Am I overreacting? Am I the one not being tolerant enough? Am I some boring girlfriend who can't welcome some childishness in her couple? 2. What should I do? Should I let him live his life with Teddy? Should I ask him to make a real choice? Should I ask him to just stop the sexual jokes? Like, who am I to ask such things I don't know? Is it my place to tell him to stop being so weird with his teddy bear? And 3. How do I get him to finally talk to me and take me seriously? TLDR, my BF has a weird relationship with his teddy bear. He considers him as a baby, a son, but still makes very sexual jokes about him, often involving me by having him touch my body, and it's making me uncomfortable. What can I do? Update. I did not expect to get that many replies. I woke up to a crazy amount of messages, so thank you all so much. Now you all really scared me as fuck. I need to see him today, so I will tell you how it went. I'm not sure what to do yet, but I'll definitely have a serious talk with him. I'll try. And then depending on his answer, I'll either give him a chance or say goodbye. Top comments. Chip_man 5674 How on earth am I still single, Bapadius? 'Cause you don't have a kick-ass wingman like Teddy, who's willing to do 3 ways and shit. 4_am_ I bet Teddy looks radiant under a strong black light. Seriously. What the fuck? I've been married for a couple years, and as an average-looking woman I ran into my fair share of weird dudes while dating. But what? If I had told my girlfriends even a light version of this dude's behavior, they would be holding an intervention for me to get away from him ASAP. Even if this was only a strange, immature coping mechanism, it's still not acceptable. The fact that he has strongly implied that he uses Teddy as a masturbation aid. What? I love my husband, but if he started carting around a pocket pussy and made me kiss it, touch it without my consent? If women like OP exist who are willing to put up with shit like this, barring you being some kind of Ted Bundy weirdo, I also have no idea why you're single. Golden Mummies * Teddy Bundy abortion lasagna. So, I'm pretty sure I used to be friends with this dude on Facebook and ended up blocking him. He had several profiles, one for Teddy, and would harass the hell out of women, then blame it on Teddy. He told one of my friends he hopes she gets raped, and then blamed it on Teddy and tried to re-add her on a different account. He has a comic novel or something he's working on about him and Teddy, and he makes the girls who block him or get upset with him the villains they defeat. If it's the same dude, he's out of his fucking mind and you need to run. Edit. I didn't want to unblock the guy's profiles, because I have to wait 48 hours to block him again and he scares me, but I found one of his many profiles that seems to be abandoned. He uses an alias, so I don't know if OP would recognize the name. However, his profile is full of photos of the creepy old bear, so maybe she'll recognize the bear. This is Teddy. I certainly hope there's not 2 of these creepazoids running around. This particular dude has a crime scene photo of a dead rape victim laying face down in a field as his cover photo, so if it's the same dude, she needs to bail, change her phone number and move. Edit 2. Thanks, got the gold and silver. The thread is locked now, so I can't reply to anyone, but OP confirmed this is not Teddy. Update. First of all, I'd like to say thank you to you all. I did not expect to get that many comments. I'm safe for those who are worried. You all really scared me though. I had many questions that were asked, so I'm quickly going to reply to the ones I saw the most often. Why are you with this guy? Are you insecure? Why are your standards so low? Etc. I obviously didn't write down his nicest description. Apart from this weird teddy bear fetish, he was a completely normal guy, with friends, going to parties, studying and so on. He's quite the popular guy, in fact, even though I don't care about this kind of thing. He took me on dates and made me feel special. I really thought he was a keeper. At the beginning, him being a little childish didn't bother me. I myself have stuffed pets, and even though they're in the cupboard, I used to love them as a kid. That's when he started sexualizing his bear and involving me in it that I freaked out. The problem is, it's so hard to tell when he's joking or not. He constantly makes jokes. That's why I never could tell whether I was overreacting or not. Is he just joking or does he mean what he says? However, the one thing I really didn't see coming, and you guys helped me realize it, is his lack of respect towards me and my boundaries. Sometimes it's easier to see from an external point of view. This whole time I was too focused wondering whether it was normal or not for me to feel uncomfortable, and I didn't realize that not once did he help me feel more comfortable despite me telling him how I felt. Thank you a lot, because that's the one thing you all really helped me for. I would have probably taken more time to realize it on my own, even though it now looks obvious. About the guy who said he knew him, abortion lasagna. Unfortunately, it wasn't him. Thank you so much for your help though. Run away. He's going to kill you. He's a psychopath, etc. Although his behavior is extremely weird, I don't see him hurting anyone. But obviously it's easier for me to tell since you all had to base your opinion on what I said. He doesn't match the psychopath personality at all. I'm not allowed to visit him because he lives in a private home. A person hosts him in one of their bedrooms, and this person doesn't allow any visit. It is weirdly strict, yes, but it's believable, and I've seen his sister once who confirmed that she couldn't visit him herself. One thing is sure though, although he may not hurt anyone, he seems to have serious problems and I'm not sure I can handle it. It's fake. It looks like the movie Ted. I know it all looks surreal, but it is true. I have multiple pictures of Teddy if some of you are interested. I know a lot about Teddy's past because my BF won't shut up about him. That's why I know the movie Ted, but I have never seen it, and my BF actually suggested that we could watch it like a month ago. Burn Teddy. Make him disappear, etc. Haha, thank you, I did think about it a lot. I often hide him when he brings him in my flat, so I know exactly where he is, and so my BF doesn't think about him. He always ends up looking for him though. But still, it gives me a break. What did you do in the end? I was meant to see him today, so I picked him up and we drove to my flat. Of course Teddy was there, and when he came in the car, my BF had him give me kisses and stuff. I said stop please in a cold way and he stopped. I said we needed to talk and he listened because I started crying. I thought it would be hard for me to start talking, but since I was so stressed with all your comments I just broke down and cried. I told him how I needed him to stop with Teddy, that he needed to stop being so close and dependent on him, that Teddy shouldn't come to my flat anymore. At first he was silent, but then he said he didn't understand why I was so uncomfortable with it, that he was purely joking, that he knew Teddy wasn't real and that it was hurting him to see that I thought he had a problem. I was extremely disappointed by his reaction and just told him I needed a break. I drove him back to his flat, and that's where I am now. Edit. Everyone is saying the post is deleted and I have no idea why. It wasn't deleted before. The original post is available in the comments, it's quite easy to find. Thank you to you all for your support. I realized there was a confusion. No, I'm not in his flat. I'm home and safe. Tonight I'll sleep at a friend's so she and I can talk about it, and I'm never going back with him. He sent me terrible messages all night which convinced me to never get back with him. Thank you again for helping me and have a nice day. I'll send a picture of Teddy for those who want one in a bit, but I have to get ready for school first. Don't worry, the face of my BF won't be shown. Top comments. Ursula Verne. It was hurting him to see that I thought he had a problem. Even if he was joking sometimes, he most certainly does still have a problem given all the stuff he was doing. He's trying to normalize his behavior. It isn't normal. He needs therapy. I'm glad to see you're taking a break and that you're alright, OP. Thanks for the update. Prithian on seriously. This dude had an ex-girlfriend who didn't like Teddy, and it was implied this was one of the reasons they were no longer together. Brought Teddy everywhere. Repeatedly forced sexual interactions with Teddy on the OP. Wes wouldn't wash or in any way maintain Teddy in a sanitary condition. When OP vocalized her discomfort, would joke it away and continue the behavior. And is so sad that OP thinks he has a problem. What? The F*CK. He clearly has at least one problem. Depending on how much we believe he believes Teddy is real determines what problem that might be. But there's at least one in every possible interpretation of this scenario. ETA. The more I think about this, the more I think him truly believing Teddy is real in some sense is actually the less disturbing problem. Karen won't take our son trick-or-treating, calling Halloween silly. Am I the jerk for insisting she lets him enjoy it? For weeks, my 7-year-old eldest Liam has been giddy with anticipation for Halloween. Convinced that trick-or-treating is the year's high point, he hasn't stopped talking about it. However, I must admit that I find the entire situation somewhat absurd. Although I am aware that Halloween is observed in other nations, it seems absurd to me that we live in Australia. I've never seen any decorations, and it's not customary here, at least not in our neighborhood. In fact, the few placards I've seen openly criticize Halloween because they believe it to be un-Australian. We haven't had a single trick-or-treater come on our door in the 5 years we've been here, but I still buy a large bag of candy every year just in case. Sorry, but it's just not something people do here, I have been saying to Liam. Liam's excitement peaked as Halloween drew near. He was asking to go trick-or-treating, practically jumping off the walls. I attempted to explain that it wasn't typical in this area, but he didn't seem to care. All he wanted to do was dress up and go candy hunting with his 5-year-old brother, Noah, who was just as excited. My wife, Alicia, flatly refused to take them when I brought it up to her. She sneered. It's just a silly American tradition. I want to avoid wasting my time on it. I was annoyed. Alicia wouldn't even think about making things special for Liam, who was all fired up for something he perceived as amazing. I attempted to talk her out of it, but she refused to listen. She insisted, "I have better things to do." The issue was that I was unable to take them myself because I had a work trip planned that would take me away on Halloween. "Perhaps you could take them out for a short while. I recommend it." She gave a headshake. I simply failed to see the purpose. I would want to unwind at home. Halloween is nothing more than an exaggerated candy grab. I grew increasingly irritated the more I considered it. It felt unfair to deprive our children the opportunity to celebrate something that so many others get to, and I didn't want to start a fight. I began thinking that, even if it meant defying Alicia's desires, I should just take kids to a neighborhood where trick-or-treating is accepted. I finally said, "I can't believe you won't even consider it," after a long day of back and forth. "It's the only night of the year, so they're thrilled." Is this asking for too much? Alicia's face was set in defiance as she crossed her arms. "Perhaps you should have considered that before planning your trip if you truly care that much." "I'm not going to do it, it's absurd." Dejected, I took out my phone to research Halloween activities. Even if Alicia is reluctant, perhaps I could find a way to make it work if I couldn't take them. Update. At last, I discovered a neighborhood gathering that provided a secure environment for trick-or-treating. Since it's before I depart for my trip, I made the decision to take them there personally. Even if it meant getting some blowback from Alicia for defying her wishes, I couldn't wait to see the joy on their faces. This entire circumstance has been the final nail in the coffin. I eventually made the decision to inform Alicia that I wanted a divorce because I've been tired of her attitude for a long time. I'm currently cleaning up our house, which she essentially ruined before leaving to live with her sister, and she handled it about as well as I had anticipated. My brother secretly had a crush on my wife and even brought my ex to our wedding to ruin it, so I told his pregnant girlfriend he was cheating on her. Please be patient as this will be a lengthy read. My younger brother, Jake, false name, is 25 years old and I am 27. As siblings, Jake and I have always been close, and I assumed our connection was quite typical. Perhaps I didn't realize what was happening. Or perhaps he was really skilled at concealing his actual feelings. My now wife Zara, 24F, and my ex-girlfriend Ruth, 27F, are also included in this story. Zara, Jake and I all attended the same school. I never really interacted with Zara because I was a few years older than them. I was acquainted with Jake and all of his pals, and we occasionally played together, but that was our only connection. Because our interests were so dissimilar, Jake and I began to drift apart by the time I was in my junior year. I didn't really push for a tight relationship with him because I assumed this was a normal part of growing up. We continued to get out from time to time, but we didn't exchange secrets. Boys don't really do that, so I wasn't too bothered by it either. The only significant aspect of this narrative is that Jake was hanging out with a few of his friends and their girlfriends, including Zara, just before I left for college. I want to clarify that nothing improper occurred before anyone calls me a weirdo or groomer for pursuing a 15-year-old. One of the children I met there inquired about my college location. Zara added that it was her ideal university when I told them, and I just said that she was more than welcome to ask for my assistance when she applied. That was it. She was the only person I interacted with at school. After that, I left for college and completely forgot about that little encounter because it didn't matter. I met Ruth in college. We clicked right away when we were classmates. I finally asked her out in my third year of college, though it took some time. We began dating after she said yes. Everything was wonderful in the beginning of the relationship. I felt like I truly understood her because we were going through comparable struggles and wished to live similar lives with one another. After graduating from college, I was able to secure a lucrative position, but Ruth was not as fortunate. We agreed to live together in order to save money, and I was more than happy to assist her. She was applying for jobs all over the place, but for some reason, she was never hired, even after she reached the interview stage. Even though I made enough money to support the two of us, it was still hard to save much because I was still in the early stages of my work, and I knew this was having a negative psychological impact on her. For more than a year, she continued to apply to various locations without success. She was devastated, and I did my best to be there for her. But shortly after, she realized that we could make ends meet with just my paycheck, so she gave up completely. At first, I welcomed the shift because I assumed she was simply worn out from applying and being turned down and that it was having a negative psychological impact on her. She followed my advice to take some time off and engage in enjoyable activities. For 3 or 4 months, this continued. She stopped complaining as much, became happier, experienced less stress, and her mental health significantly improved. I felt pleased for her. In the next few weeks, I hope to gently encourage her to resume her job search. When I brought up the subject a month later, she reacted negatively, claiming that the thought of going through that terrifying experience once more made her cry. She said she would begin applying when she was ready and asked me not to bring it up again. I accepted since I believed her and didn't want to put undue pressure on her or come out as unsupportive. I was promoted and given a sizable raise 2 years after I started working. Now that I could at last start saving and doing the things I loved, I was ecstatic. I've had to put a lot of my aspirations on hold for the past 2 years in order to provide for 2 people with my paycheck. Naturally, Ruth's mental health issues and my personal interests took a backseat. Now that I had some money to spend on fun, I felt relaxed. However, Ruth began pleading with me to assist in paying for her niece's schooling as soon as she learned that I had been given a raise. Ruth's brother was impoverished and could only work for a few months at a time. He had gotten a lady pregnant and was clueless about how to raise a child, particularly after the woman died and left no family behind. Ruth's brother, who was completely unprepared to care for another human being, took the infant. Ruth pleaded with me, saying that even though she had only met her niece twice, she loved her and would never be able to forgive herself if she couldn't assist her. All of this was getting to be too much for me, so I told her I would give it some thought and ended the conversation. There was a part of me that honestly considered giving her the money, but there was also a nastier part of me that believed it was her niece and that she could get up and get work to support her. That night, I drank a lot, and as I continued to drink, all the logic and reason I had suppressed came flooding back. Since I was in love with Ruth, I never really gave the suspicion that she was attempting to take advantage of me any thought. I was unable to get rid of those emotions though. I was pleased to support her throughout her life, but it seemed excessive to ask me to support her niece as soon as I received a raise, especially at the expense of my own desires. Since I would be stuck in this situation for the rest of my life if I started supporting the niece now, I knew it was time to stand up for myself. I sat Ruth down the following day and informed her that, regardless of how regrettable the situation, I would not be providing financial support for her niece. Additionally, I told her that she was free to take a job and assist the poor child if she felt sorry for her. I didn't care what she did with the money. I refused to listen to her attempt to butt in, claiming that I was being unkind and that a poor youngster needed my assistance. I also informed her that the distribution of domestic duties would shift if she failed to find employment. If she wasn't making a financial contribution, I expected her to do 80% of the tasks because we didn't have any children or pets. I informed her that I wanted a vacation after working tirelessly for the past 2 years to support her while balancing work and home. She needed to help relieve some of my financial burden if she wasn't prepared to aid me financially so that I could have more money for myself. It would be an understatement to say that she began to yell. It was a miracle I didn't leave the conversation with my ears bleeding because I don't think I've ever had the bad experience of listening to such high decibels before. She called me every possible epithet during her lengthy tirade, including misogynistic, manipulative, gaslighting, and financially abusive. I simply needed a break though. If she couldn't do this for me, why were we even partners? The altercation continued for a while. She probably thought that because I've never been confrontational, I would give in. I didn't, which surprised her. For several more days we were at a standstill. She cut me off once more when I attempted to bring up the subject. I realized we were done at that point. I was merely supporting her life and receiving nothing in return, therefore there was no future for me in this relationship. It was a messy split. Because she was unemployed, she had nowhere to go. I informed her that I was done with her and that she should have her problems straightened out by then, but I was willing to give her some money to help her get by for a month or two. She broke down in tears, accusing me of faking and performing the whole drama act. I informed her that my decision was final and that I was no longer interested in this relationship. It could not be saved, and all the solutions she was now offering ought to have been presented to her while we were still together, not as a last resort. The split was nonetheless unpleasant even though I had set her up for a few months. I didn't understand how much dead weight I'd been carrying until she walked out. I could spend so much time and effort on myself. I resumed interests I had given up while in school. These pastimes allowed me to get back in touch with Zara. Zara chose to pursue painting as a career despite not attending my college. Even though it was somewhat of a covert pastime because it wasn't deemed masculine enough, I had always loved doodling as a child. I went since I was curious about the art show in my city. I discovered Zara there. We started chatting after she displayed a piece in the exhibition. I had broken up with Ruth a few months prior to this. When I asked Zara how things were doing, we struck up a conversation that we both found enjoyable. We agreed to get together once more, and she said she would notify me of any upcoming art events in the area. She did. After we reconnected, we gradually began to fall in love. I was already deeply in love with her when I finally asked her out a year later. When I tried to ask Jake about her, he told me that they hadn't spoken since she broke up with the guy from his school friend group. I won't go into all the specifics of my relationship with Zara because they aren't pertinent to this tale, but know that we have always been friendly and equal partners, and I knew she was the person I wanted to marry from a young age. Ruth made a few attempts to contact me during this time, but I always turned her down. Zara knew this every time it occurred, and she was confident enough to trust me. A year into our relationship, Zara and I were already considering marriage when I took her to supper with my family. That has never been a problem because my parents don't meddle in their children's private matters. Zara and my family got along well, and the supper was enjoyable. We were all discussing how amusing it was that life operates in weird ways and how my run-in with Zara again was entirely coincidental. At that point, Jake joked that he was shocked that his high school infatuation would end up becoming his sister-in-law. All those in attendance interpreted it as a light-hearted joke at the moment. Zara even claimed that the only person in their group who was even remotely engaging to converse with was Jake. I didn't give Jake's remark any thought, and the dinner was enjoyable. He also appeared to be really pleased with me. Even though he had been in several relationships, I had no idea that he had been harboring affections for Zara all these years. The problems began when the wedding was being planned. At the time, I didn't see it coming since I never imagined my own brother would do something like this. At first, it was minor infractions that might be explained by his general forgetfulness, such as failing to check in with the caterer or misjudging the time of the dress appointment. I now see that he purposefully caused a wedge between Zara and me in order to somehow call off the wedding. It didn't work. Even though we were both under a lot of stress, we were too resilient to be shaken by a few missed appointments. If anything, Zara's snippiness and short fuse with Jake simply made him feel worse. The wedding day was the last straw. Ruth and I hadn't communicated all this time. To be honest, I had no idea where she was, what she was doing, or how she was doing, and I had no interest in her. I had no idea that Jake had been communicating with her for months before the wedding. If nothing else worked, he intended to get Ruth to convince or pressure me into leaving Zara. He was hoping for some sort of intervention, like drama. Despite not being on the guest list, she arrived as Jake's companion. I was taken aback by this since we expected Jake's girlfriend to be present and everyone in the family had met her. I had a horrible feeling, but I didn't have time to ask him why Ruth was there. Fortunately, Ruth had not yet caught Zara's attention. Ruth got up and began yelling in front of everyone just before Zara was set to go down the aisle. She said that she was the love of my life, that she was willing to take me back, and that I didn't have to marry Zara. There was such a ruckus that Ruth began to weep and beat her feet like a spoiled kid. In all honesty, it was pitiful. Taking Jake by the collar, I rushed over to him and yelled at him to get out. He claimed that Zara and he were destined to be together and that Ruth and I were meant to be together, and that he had come to put things right. I was horrified by the ridiculous rubbish he continued to spew. I requested that my pals take him and Ruth out of there. Zara came out at this moment, and I'm not even sure if she understood what was going on, but she strolled calmly over to Ruth, blew her a kiss, slapped her in front of everyone and requested her bridesmaids to start the music. Never in my life have I witnessed anything so legendary. Ruth found it really humiliating, and rather than causing a controversy around me, she simply made a show of herself in front of everyone. Given this situation, the remainder of the wedding proceeded as smoothly as possible. I didn't hope for such a dramatic day, but there wasn't much I could do to change the course of events at that point. Immediately following the wedding, I blocked Jake. He had shown me plenty, and I had little interest in hearing his version of events. The fact that Zara and Jake had never even truly bonded made it all the more reprehensible and nasty. To be honest, he was dangerous to be around and possessed delusions. Above everything, I felt terrible for Violet, his lover. I called Violet a few days after the wedding to find out why she didn't go and why Jake didn't invite her as a guest. Before I chose to interfere in their relationship, I needed to know what type of story he had been telling her. She told me bluntly that I didn't have to act like I liked her and that she would much rather I just be honest with her. I quickly realized that Jake had prevented Zara from attending the wedding by using either Zara or me as an excuse. She urged me to stop acting when I questioned her about it, stating that Jake had already informed her that she wasn't invited, which is why he didn't receive a guest at the wedding. She claimed that she didn't mind him leaving or that we didn't like her, but she was really offended by the fact that the whole family acted as though they liked her when we actually didn't. I firmly informed her that Jake had deceived her and that none of that was real. I pleaded with her to keep our talk private from Jake and our parents for the next 2 weeks, and that Zara and I would meet her when we got back from our honeymoon. I had to provide her a picture of the invitation that was sent to Jake, which obviously contained a +1, because she claimed she wouldn't betray Jake on our behalf. I also validated her attendance with Jake by sending her screenshots of our chats. She claimed not to believe us, so I told her that I understood and that we weren't requesting her trust, but rather that she should remain silent until we could meet and address the misunderstanding. She consented, but I wasn't sure if she would follow through on it. I was eager to expose Violet Jake's true nature, but I could only hope that everything would go smoothly during my honeymoon. Update 1. I had no idea this story would become so well known. As I mentioned, I went on my honeymoon and didn't care to check Reddit, but my inbox is overflowing with requests for updates. Thankfully, nothing untoward occurred during the actual honeymoon. Jake didn't try to phone me, and he was still blocked. Violet texted Jake briefly to let him know that she hadn't discussed our chat and that she wanted to meet as soon as I got back from my honeymoon. A few hours had passed since the meeting. Violet didn't feel safe visiting our house, so we met at a cafe. At first, she was really protective and it was obvious from her demeanor and body language that she didn't want to hear what we had to say. However, we thoroughly explained everything to her. She first didn't believe us and called us crazy for making such a false accusation against Jake. I did, however, ask some acquaintances if they had any wedding films while we were on our vacation. Although there wasn't a single video that showed the full experience, other people were filming, so we were able to piece the incident together in general. After showing Violet those movies, I gave her the rundown on Ruth's entire predicament. At that point, she began to trust us. When she inquired about any past interactions between her and Jake, Zara adamantly denied it. It was difficult for Violet to accept that Jake would be so naive about everything, particularly if nothing was happening. Zara claimed to be equally perplexed. She didn't know how or when Jake fell in love with her, and she thought that she had fallen for him. They had only interacted for 10 or 12 times at most. We informed Violet that we believed it was our responsibility to notify her of the situation and that she might use the information however she saw fit. Additionally, we informed her that we had blocked Jake and would no longer be communicating with him, and we didn't anticipate this changing in the near future. She acknowledged that she could see our point of view, but she also stated that she wanted to speak with Jake right away. We made an effort to talk her out of it, but she felt that she owed it to herself to know if staying with Jake was wise, especially since she was pregnant. Zara and I both congratulated her on her pregnancy and assured her that we would always be there for her. Violet stated that although she was certain she wanted to move forward with the confrontation, she would have to reveal that we had contacted her and told her everything. Zara and I understood that supporting Violet was the correct thing to do, even though it wasn't ideal because we both wanted to avoid getting involved in Jake's turmoil. We assured her that she had our undivided attention and that we would stop at nothing to support her. I am aware that this is not the end, but that was the only thing that transpired during the meeting. For Jake, everything is about to explode up, and he has no idea what's going to happen. Update 2. Although I am aware that this update will be released shortly, this situation has gotten out of hand. I hate accidentally starting this storm, and Jake is going to take a serious hit. Violet wasted no time in getting right to the point after speaking with us. She asked Jake if he was at work when she called him. She stormed over to his office at that precise moment and confronted him after he said yes. It became ugly. She asked if he had done the things we had told her about and walked right into his office, which she was given permission to enter because she had told them she was dropping off some files for him. Violet wouldn't have it when Jake tried to explain that it wasn't the right place to talk and that they would talk about it when he got home. HR had to be summoned up to his floor because there was a good deal of shouting going on. This is where Jake's situation becomes even better. Or worse. Violet identified herself as Jake's girlfriend and revealed that she was pregnant when the HR assistant asked her who she was and why she was making such a fuss. She was shocked when Jake denied it. He categorically denied dating her. More shouting followed, and Violet was finally led away. That day a storm awaited Jake as he returned home. I don't know the specifics, but they got into a huge fight. I do know that it was discovered that Jake had been having an affair with Violet for a considerable amount of time, and that the lady he was having an affair with was the HR assistant who had stepped in to break the news. Jake is therefore doomed. Violet is a no-nonsense woman who doesn't put up with disrespect, therefore I'm positive that she will leave him. It is nearly impossible for her to forgive Jake and condone cheating. Jake's workplace has an extremely stringent no-dating policy about his affair partner. Employees are forced to sign contracts and other documents. His affair partner, let's call her Jane, found out that Jake had been pretending to be a single man and that he had a pregnant girlfriend after the altercation and Violet's tirade at work. When Jane discovered that Jake had been lying to her the entire time and that she was the other lady, she was horrified. Word spread quickly, and Jake is currently facing criticism at work for his actions. Jake is in a lot of trouble because Jane has ties to the company's executives, which makes things worse for him. He will undoubtedly lose Violet, and he may lose his job. Jake has nowhere to go because Violet has also evicted him from the house, which turns out to have been Violet's grandmother's. In the middle of the night, Jake came to see us and gave me an explanation of everything. For some reason, I let him in. Never in my life have I witnessed him so enraged. He would not stop yelling that Zara would one day leave me for him, that I had destroyed his life, and that I never deserved someone like her. I was genuinely concerned for his mental health because of how insane he sounded. He requires assistance, possibly from a psychiatrist or a therapist. Jake also became aggressive with me. I'm aware that I'll be called a fool for not calling the police on him, but ultimately, he's my brother, and I didn't want to add to his troubles. More than anything, I felt sorry for him. It's incomprehensible how one foolish choice can ruin someone's life. He had it all, a fantastic profession, a devoted and caring fiancé, and now a baby on the way, but he blew it all away with a series of foolish choices while living in a bubble of bizarre illusions. Right now, I simply feel bad for him. Update 3. Jake was laid off. Even while this is not shocking, I still feel horrible. Violet no longer wants to interact with him after their breakup. Violet has the full support of Zara, me, and my parents. Jake now believes that because of a harmless prank, I have alienated the entire family. Yes, he is now claiming that his pledge of unwavering love was a hoax. He has been totally shunned by the family, and no one is believing this new story of his. This drama has been annoying me. And I'm not sure where he's residing at the moment. As a recent bride, I can't keep rushing around cleaning up Jake's mess. I'm happy that I brought Violet into this in the first place, but I never imagined things would get so out of control. I don't see how Jake can get over this. It's a complete mess. I don't blame my parents for being upset with him because he threw everything away and was essentially a jerk. I don't know how he came to be this way. We weren't brought up this way. This will be my final update though. Zara and I have come to the conclusion that we must move on from this. Violet and our niece or nephew will always have a home with us and we will support them in any manner they require. We're done though, other than that. I appreciate all of the advice, Reddit. I never imagined that I would have my own dysfunctional story to tell, but that is what it is. After years of bullying, my sister invited me to dinner. When I arrived, she made me clean up, calling me a pathetic waitress. My parents have never concealed the fact that my sister, Helen, has always been the best child in the family. The youngest of my parents' children, she was considered their miracle child. Despite having serious health issues, my parents had been trying for years to have another child after me. My parents were effectively told to give up on growing their family after my mother experienced problems following my delivery, which prompted physicians to advise against getting pregnant again. But my mother defied all expectations and got pregnant again 5 years later. For my father, who was thrilled about the possibility of having another child, this news was nothing short of a miracle. This position as a miracle baby had a significant impact on my sister's upbringing and the way my parents regarded her. They have always treated her like a queen, going above and beyond to make sure she has the finest of everything. Her unique position within the family was further cemented by the lavish celebration of each of her accomplishments and milestones. It was obvious to everyone, including me, that my sister had a special and elevated place in our parents' affections since this partiality was never covert. Rather, it was publicly expressed and accepted. Not to be misunderstood, my parents also made sure I had all I needed. However, their treatment of me frequently seemed like an afterthought. For example, school functions. My parents would always choose to go to my sister's function if we had activities on the same day. As if my wants and occurrences were somehow less significant, they would explain that she was the youngest and so required them more. My parents still treasure the innumerable childhood photos of my sister that are painstakingly arranged in albums. They haven't even saved one of my albums, on the other hand, saying that my photos were lost in a storm. I would have liked to see how I grew up, therefore I wish they could have at least saved a couple photos. When my early life wasn't kept the same way as my sister's, it's difficult to avoid feeling like an afterthought. When I was growing up, my sister Helen's problems, no matter how minor, were promptly addressed and fixed. However, my father would brush me off and label me spoiled if I ever complained or wanted something. My mother would reprimand me for being more confident like my sister and accuse me of being overly theatrical if I ever felt nervous about trying new things or approaching strangers. I always felt that my sister's worries and emotions were more important than mine because of the way my parents treated me. Then came the game of blame. I was also held accountable for my sister's activities if she ever committed a transgression. My parents say that since I was the eldest, I ought to have taught her to be better. Because of my birth order, I was always held accountable, even if I had nothing to do with her behavior. This unwarranted ongoing blaming made me even more of the underdog and made me live in perpetual shadow of my sister. Helen didn't help either. She was well aware of how to take advantage of her status as the favorite child, and frequently used it to outdo me or get away with things. She would often coerce me into letting her use my possessions or put on my clothes without my consent during even the most minor arguments. She would go to our parents and complain if I ever ventured to object, accusing me of being conceited and self-centered. I would unavoidably receive criticism for not sharing and be made to feel guilty in every circumstance. But Helen's actions were distinctly biased. She was always very protective of her belongings and never let me touch them. We shared a room for a long time, and she aggressively protected her side and possessions. The dynamic remained the same even after we went into different rooms. She was quite particular about her belongings, but she always wanted me to be understanding and giving with mine. It was discouraging and frustrating to experience this double standard. I always felt alone and underappreciated because of Helen's ability to control circumstances to her advantage and my parents' steadfast support of her. They believed Helen could do no wrong, while I was always in the wrong, regardless of what I did. I had severe depression as a result of my parents' and sister's behavior. As a teenager, I experienced severe problems with my self-image and my confidence began to decline. Particularly when Helen would argue with me or make fun of me, the tension was unbearable. I was constantly on edge due to my fear of confrontation, and I frequently felt like I was about to have a panic attack because of my parents' combative yelling. I would feel as though I was choking beneath the weight of their disappointment and rage when they approached too close during their outbursts. My family didn't seem to be aware of or concerned about my difficulties. With no one to turn to for help, I felt like an animal in a cage, caught in a vicious cycle of mental and emotional suffering. Writing down my thoughts in a journal was therefore the only thing that gave me comfort. I would write my heart out on those pages every night, sharing my sorrows, disappointments, and anxieties. It was the only setting where I felt free to be totally open about my situation. It gave me some serenity and allowed me to process the pandemonium around me. Because I was worried that Helen may discover the journal and make fun of my weaknesses, I always kept it hidden beneath my bed. My worst nightmare came true one day. While I was out, Helen, who had a tendency of prying into my room even though I had repeatedly asked her to leave, discovered my journal. My one haven must have been violated when she read through its contents. My parents and Helen were seated in the living room with particularly serious expressions when I got home that evening. Given their solemn looks, I assumed there might have been a death in the family and inquired about their well-being. In order to speak with me, my dad asked me to sit down. As I obeyed, my heart began to race and I had a bad sensation in my stomach. Then, from behind her, my mother took my journal. When I demanded to know what she was doing with my journal, my eyes dilated in amazement and disbelief. While my mother gave me an unusually serious look and inquired as to whether what I had written actually expressed my innermost sentiments, Helen simply grinned, taking pleasure in my pain. I felt completely exposed and deceived at that very moment. My notebook had been my lone haven, where I could vent my suffering and annoyance without worrying about criticism or mockery. My deepest innermost thoughts were now exposed to the very people who inspired me to compose them. I was overcome by the seriousness of the situation, and while I fought to react, I could feel a panic attack coming. Yes, it did reflect my thoughts, I said gently, adding that they had no right to read it. My father shook his head and informed me that they were really worried about me if what I had written was accurate. He went on to add that after reading my journal, they felt that I was a psychopath, who needed assistance because of the hatred they thought I had for them, and I gazed at them in confusion. I was shocked beyond belief. I had never said anything harsh about my sister or my parents in my whole journal. All I had done was write down the feelings and experiences their acts had given me over the years. But here they were, turning my sincere thoughts into something evil. For keeping a notebook, my parents began accusing me of writing such dark things, and even calling me a psychopath. My mother continued by accusing me of making things up to fill the book and saying that neither she nor my father had ever treated me in this manner. I needed serious help, she insisted, before I harmed someone. Helen went so far as to comment that she was ashamed to call me her sister after reading my notebook since my actions were clearly not normal. Retorting that I had done nothing wrong and that I had not written anything negative about them, I attempted to defend myself. I clarified that they had no authority to condemn me based on my personal reflections because the notebook was only about my life. My family, however, was obsessed with their story that something was wrong with me and didn't care about my explanations. In front of them, I felt so vulnerable and exposed. They seemed to have taken away the last remnant of my privacy and turned it against me. The very following day, my parents informed me that I needed serious help before things turned south, and that they would be taking me to see a psychiatrist. It was obvious that they perceived me as the issue because of the disdain and misdirected worry in their statements. I experienced a crippling sense of powerlessness and betrayal. Instead of admitting the pain and harm they had caused, it seemed as though they were intent on making me the issue and changing the course of events. I was deeply hurt by the betrayal, and their reaction made me feel even more alone and powerless than I had already felt. I felt quite uneasy and guilty at first when I started seeing a psychiatrist, as though I had actually done something wrong. I was ashamed to express my thoughts as I had accepted the notion that I was the problem in my family. My psychiatrist recognized my hesitancy and attempted to close the distance by using my notebook. I felt more at ease and was able to open up when she read entries from it and asked me questions based on what I had written. Since it had always been easier for me to express myself on paper than in person, the journal was a useful tool throughout our meetings. But as I was getting married to the love of my life, everything changed. My parents contacted me after learning about my impending nuptials via cousins and other family members. They were obviously shocked to be left out of such a significant event in my life. They made an unexpected call. They reluctantly expressed sorry for their previous actions and acknowledged their wrongdoings. Since I was going to have a family of my own, they acknowledged that even though they couldn't alter the past, they still wanted to make new memories with me. They pleaded with me to pardon them and let them share in this new phase of my life. Their apologies was a surprising turn of events that had me face a variety of feelings. I chose to forgive them and invite my parents to my wedding since I was starting a new chapter in my life. In addition, they asked my sister to come, but I flatly refused, and they didn't pursue the matter. In retrospect, I'm glad I invited my parents, who had a great time at the wedding. The decision seemed natural since they were truly thrilled for my husband and myself. Since then I've tried to occasionally go over to my parents' house for supper in order to catch up. I occasionally have to talk to my sister on these visits. She still attempts to enrage me by making insensitive remarks about my marriage or my family, but I always make sure to confront her conduct head-on and correct her. Helen has only grown more resentful of me over the years, particularly after learning that I get along better with my in-laws than she does with her husband's family. Her in-laws have never truly embraced her into their family and apparently still hate her. She tries to put them down by making subtle remarks about my spouse or my in-laws. She expresses her annoyance and discontent with her personal situation through these comments. Helen keeps making these harsh remarks despite my dad's repeated observations of her behavior and his request for her to cease. I was told I was pregnant 4 months ago. My spouse and I are ecstatic about the news. He makes twice as much as I do, so we agreed that I should take a temporary leave of absence to concentrate on the pregnancy. My spouse and my in-laws, who have been quite sympathetic and supportive along this process, fully back this decision. My sister was incensed when she learned that I had chosen to quit my career in order to stay at home with my unborn child. Because they needed both of their earnings to make ends meet, her husband never permitted her to be a stay-at-home mother, which was the source of her rage. Helen never had the opportunity to unwind or take a break during her pregnancy, unlike me. As a result, whenever we get together, she criticizes my choice to express her displeasure. She has referred to me as foolish, and suggested that being a stay-at-home mom is humiliating. On multiple occasions, I have just laughed off her comments and told her that I had years of experience and could go back to work whenever I chose. Helen, however, has attempted to manipulate the issue by claiming that I should never have given up on my profession and that my husband is being domineering. This strikes me as ironic because I chose to leave my job. I am aware that her attempts to discredit my choice are obviously motivated more by her personal discontent with her life than by any genuine criticism of my decisions. I have made every effort to avoid her in order to preserve my mental health and give my whole attention to enjoying my pregnancy. My sister contacted me a week ago to invite me to a dinner party she was throwing. She wanted my spouse and I to go, and she intended to invite her in-laws and our whole family. I viewed this dinner gathering as a welcome diversion and an opportunity to mingle, as I hadn't gone out much since my pregnancy. I was more motivated to go since I reasoned that my sister would probably pay less attention to me with so many people around. Although I consented to go, things didn't work out that night. My spouse had to work late into the night to finish some last-minute chores. He was already under a lot of stress and he kept apologizing to me for being late to work. I didn't hold it against him because I knew that these things may happen. We were already running late for the dinner party when he finally arrived to pick me up. I thought it was better to be late than not at all, so I chose not to cancel despite the delay. As soon as we got to my sister's house, I saw that most of the people there had already eaten dinner and were chatting casually. My dad doesn't feel comfortable driving at night, so even my parents went after supper. My sister chastised us for being late right away, and although I didn't blame her for being irritated, I took the initiative to apologize on my husband's behalf because he was obviously humiliated by the circumstance. I was relieved when Helen ushered my husband to a chair and brought him a plate of food, but she drew me aside and led me into the kitchen. There she disclosed that there was no food left for me because everyone had already consumed their second or even third helping. This realization surprised me, especially since I was already really hungry and felt even more so because I was pregnant. I was disappointed, but I decided not to dispute or voice my displeasure. I told her that I could just order something online because I knew that our tardiness had caused this trouble. I could still eat in this manner without creating any more trouble. It was nice of her to nod and offer to order me something. However, she informed me that the least I could do tonight was wash the dishes because I had arrived so late and hadn't contributed much during the evening. I was surprised when she asked. I sneered and informed her that I hadn't anticipated being asked to work for her just because I was late for the dinner party invitation. Because I was late, I thought it was ridiculous to expect me to clear her visitors' plates. She reacted quickly and angrily. As her sister, I should be helping her, especially since she's been cooking so much all day, she shot out in a low, angry tone. She said that as my mother had assisted her in serving the guests at dinner, I should do the same because I was related. Helen made it clear that she wanted my assistance because her husband was never helpful in the kitchen. I countered that Helen shouldn't have invited so many people if she was feeling overburdened. She responded angrily and contemptuously, telling me that the least I could do was to keep quiet and provide her a hand because I would never be able to comprehend her predicament. In a scathing comment, she went on to say that it wasn't a huge problem if I assisted her as well because, now that I was pregnant, I was just a pathetic waitress for my husband at home. Her scathing remarks caught me off guard and were really painful. The weight of her remarks caused tears to build up in my eyes, adding to my already present feelings of hunger and emotional vulnerability. I hurried into one of Helen's bedrooms and closed the door behind me because I didn't want her to see me in distress. I had to locate a place where I could gather myself. Once inside, the usual feeling of being unable to breathe was overwhelming, and I could feel my old panic attack beginning to re-emerge. I fervently prayed that no one, including my spouse, would notice my misery and pursue me. I needed this alone time to get some peace and regain emotional control. After calming down and giving it some thought, I believed that Helen deserved to be disciplined once and for all because of her constant remarks and the way she continued to treat me. I made the decision to act against her. Finding all the pictures I had taken of my old journals was the first thing I did. I took my journal with me when I left my parents' house, and throughout the years, I began to save pictures of the journal entries in my email so I would always have a copy. I was able to locate pictures of my old journal entries, which described all the humiliations and complaints I had suffered at the hands of my sister years ago, thanks to this. Since my sister was only terrified of my brother-in-law, I decided to send him all the pictures before my husband and I departed that evening. I was aware that my parents would just chastise her for her behavior toward me, but she would never, ever change. I wanted Helen to go through a small portion of the humiliation that her husband rightfully inflicted upon her. I sent him a thorough letter outlining how Helen had been a major bully in my life. Helen had asked me to the dinner party, but I had to clean up after her and the other guests, I wrote in the message. I explained that she seemed to be jealous of my more thoughtful husband, which is why she was upset with me. In the hopes that he might better understand or take action, I tried to give him a clear picture of Helen's behavior and how it had affected me. Bill and Helen got into a heated argument as a result, as you may guess. Bill told our parents that he now saw Helen differently since he couldn't believe she had been harassing me for years. My dad has chosen to be a little more neutral, but my mother fully blames me for their argument since she feels that I went too far by exposing my sister. I have no regrets about letting my sister see her spouse. Update 1. For those who are curious, after learning what my sister said to me at the party, my husband is just as furious with her. He didn't know, but when I told him everything, he called my sister to vent his annoyance and correct her. I've never witnessed him so agitated, and Helen must have been really unsettled by his response. Additionally, he has made it very apparent to her that she should stop talking about our family going forward, especially since she is unaware of the whole truth. Update 2. My brother-in-law is furious with Helen since his own family has always thought she is egotistical and careless. Throughout their entire marriage, Helen had a tendency to place the blame for any argument or quarrel on everyone but herself. Because he loves her, Bill has been lenient toward her for a long time. But it was really eye-opening for him when I showed him my journal entries. He had never known our complex past, but he had always sensed that Helen and I were not particularly close. He had only witnessed a superficial aspect of our relationship and was ignorant of the seriousness of the problems that had existed between us because Helen had conveniently never told him the truth. His perception of my sister was drastically changed after hearing my side of the tale, which at last filled in a lot of the blanks. It demonstrated even more how accurate his family's assessment of Helen was. Bill told me all of this when he contacted me this week. He also wanted to hear it all straight from my point of view. We had a lengthy phone discussion, and I was more than happy to talk. I described all the hardships I'd gone through as a child, highlighting the way my parents had always given preference to my sister. Before I nearly cut them off after leaving for college, I told my parents how my psychiatrist had attempted to address these problems with them, but they had never admitted their mistakes. My brother-in-law also talked candidly about his own interactions with Helen throughout our talk. He described how she would occasionally treat him similarly, but he had always dismissed it as just her being herself. Even though he was aware of his own shortcomings in their relationship, he was shocked to learn about the ways she had harassed me over the years, even as an adult. It has truly caused him to reconsider their relationship as a whole. Helen may be acting harshly toward their child behind his back, which worries him as well. Update 3. For the final time, I'm answering some of your questions. After the party, my sister wrote me a number of angry texts and, of course, blamed me for everything. My husband had to step in and stop her. She hasn't contacted me or spoken to me since. Second, my mom has insisted that I inform Bill that I over-exaggerated the events from my early years and apologize. I adamantly declined, stating that my husband and I would cut her off if she persisted in endorsing my sister's position. But my father knows why I did what I did. Finally, I'm not sure what Bill will decide about his connection with Helen. My ultimate objective was to expose my sister and show her that she couldn't continue to get away with disparaging me. I have absolutely no regrets about what I did. Bill is now entirely responsible for determining what is best for his future.